I would say do what you have to do to make the jump. If you think like only hardcore travel counts, but I'm so scared. Take any expectation you have about like what like real or like challenging enough. I don't know. Take kind of any prestige or fake like ego out of it. And if you're really that scared about going somewhere off the beaten path, go to London. Go somewhere easy. Go somewhere in the U.S. if you're not, or Canada. Go somewhere that feels easy to you, and then go to the next place from there. But I don't even like to say it's as good as it looks because I honestly feel like it's better than it looks online. Like
every Monday, I'll be joined by guests to talk about their travel stories, travel tips, backpacking advice, and so much more. Right now, I'm taking the podcast on the road traveling with me. So tune in every week for short form episodes detailing all my travels alongside my Monday guest episode. Are you a backpacker, gap year student, or simply someone who loves to travel? Then this is the podcast for you, designed to inspire you to travel. There'll be stories to tell, tips to share, and experiences to inspire. Welcome to the show. Hello and welcome to this week's episode, where I'm joined by Kayla Ihrig from the Writing From Nowhere blog. Kayla has a manuscript in the works for a book called How to Be a Digital Nomad. So we're going to talk about the said book, and it's out on January the 3rd. So I've got a lot of questions. Really excited to talk about that and Kayla's travel today. Welcome to the show. How are you doing?
Hi, James. Thanks for having me. I'm great.
Tell listeners, where are you in the world right now?
Right now, I'm in the north of the Netherlands. So the Groningen province, but the no one, if you've heard of it, I would be shocked. The village of Harkstede.
I have not.
No one has.
Even though I'm from Norwich, across the water, I've not heard much of the Netherlands or Holland's countryside. You hear about the big places, right?
Yeah. Even the city, like Groningen is a huge. It's a major city, but if it's not Amsterdam or Den Haag, no one really has visited. But those who have nice things. I mean, it's a lovely place, but yeah, everyone goes to Amsterdam, of course.
Of course. Is it Groningen, you say?
Yeah, it's like Groningen would be kind of the English. So I'm American.
Yeah.
I'm sure people can probably hear that. I didn't pronounce it like in Dutch, but it's like it's the hairy G in Dutch, the Groen,
I can't say that.
Yeah, I'm sure I'm not. If somebody's listening who's Dutch, they're probably wincing. So
I do have quite a few Dutch listeners, yeah. So we're keen to see their reaction to that.
Cover your ears. I'll say no more.
All I know is it's a football team, I think. That's all I know. They're a football team, right?
Oh, yeah.
They're playing green? Might make it up.
Is that a color? Is that the color? No, they're the Groningen FC. I don't know the color. I don't do sports. But I hear them. I hear whenever they're winning or losing. You can kind of, if you're in the neighborhood, you like hear everybody screaming from the stadium. So
every week without fail.
Yeah.
So as you said, you're American. So tell listeners, where did you grow up?
I grew up in Pennsylvania, which is in the Northeast. I grew up on a suburb of Pittsburgh. So Pittsburgh has a lot of sports teams, so I feel like maybe that's something that people know the name of.
Steelers?
Yeah, the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Gets in there.
American football, and then there's the Pittsburgh Penguins, which is ice hockey. So we actually do have a football soccer team, but no one, poor American soccer players, they'd be famous in any other place, but in the US, people are like, play a real sport,
Yeah. What Americans don't realize, it is a world sport. Yeah, it's unfortunate.
I know.
But
I played soccer for 12 years, so I respect the game.
I was going to say women's soccer in USA is huge. It's like they're normally the best team in the world, right? So
yeah, not this year, but let's not dwell. No.
Oh yeah, bad tournament. Also with football or soccer in USA, the upside of them not really even recognised is they don't get pestered. If they go and play in Europe, like in Groningen, for example, and play for the team, they're probably going to get noticed in the street, right? And I reckon a lot of players, even famous players, go to USA because like, oh, do you know what? I can just walk to the shop and maybe one person might know me, but at least I can walk around and be a normal human being.
Yeah, very much so. Yeah, you're right. It's a nice, actually, silver lining.
Yeah, apart from Messi, though, because he's obviously the best ever, but he gets hounded.
I would not know him to pick him out of a lineup.
There you go. Prove the point.
American party of one.
Yeah. Okay. So you grew up in Pennsylvania. I did drive through there, I think, on a road trip this year.
You probably hit some potholes. Worst roads in the country.
But not as bad as Canada, so you're doing all right.
No, Canada. We always assume everything's fixed up there. It's like the fixed version of the US. Yeah, where things work.
Roads,
Things
roads
work.
don't work.
Okay.
Oh God, yeah. I think it must be something to do with the weather, right? Must get like super.
The freeze thaw
Yeah,
destroys roads. Yeah.
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 Just that's great if you're building roads, constant work,
Yeah. It's
win-win.
a good industry. Yeah.
If you don't want to travel,
Yeah.
yeah. Which we're going to get onto later because we all want to travel, pretty much. I think who listens to this podcast. So my first question, early doors, was there any travel in your family that maybe ignited a bit of wanderlust?
Yeah. Growing up, we traveled a lot in the US. So we did big road trips. Like we would drive all the way like from Pennsylvania to Arizona, which is,
Oh
I don't know,
wow,
maybe 2,000 miles.
yeah, that's mental.
It's 20 hours of straight driving.
Hmm.
And I can remember one time specifically we did it in a day. Because we had to, my parents were hosting Easter and they had to have the Easter ham in the oven. And it was like we would just blew through and we would be you're at a diner because as you do whenever you're on a road trip in the US is you
Yeah,
like fuel up at diners because they're open 24/7. I
yeah,
remember being there and my dad asking, "What state are we in?" And they're like, "What state?" And he's like, "We've got to get home for the Easter ham. We've got to get it in the oven." So, but we did a lot of road tripping in the US. My parents, yeah, we would go kind of every summer and go take a trip somewhere new, go to South Dakota, Florida, just we would decide as a family. We would sit down and my mom would ask like, well, what do you want to see? And there's always kind of the kid answer of like, I want to go to the beach. But then it's
of
like,
course.
okay, think of something else. Like, do you want to go see like this national park or go back to see this family member on the other side of the country? And we covered, I don't know, maybe half the states that way as a
Oh
kid. And
wow,
then I
it's
moved
amazing.
around my first 2 years out of university. I moved across the country twice from side to side. And then I ended up seeing all like 44 states by the time I left the US. So I was 24 whenever I left the US and went traveling. So that was 6 years ago. I'm 30 now. And I saw 44 states by that point, but nothing international. So I didn't have like maybe I had the confidence knowing like I see it. I can go to it. I had that mindset of travel down, but I didn't have any like confidence in my ability to navigate. I was like really, I mean, I'd never been somewhere where the English wasn't spoken.
Yeah,
I had never dealt with traveling alone without a car. I'd always had a car and been driving. So I had no I mean, I guess I did have confidence because I believed, you know what, I can go to that thing that I see online. I can buy a
yeah.
ticket and go there. I had that confidence, but I was not a confident traveler. I was so nervous and I was legitimately terrified to go to a place where I couldn't speak the language. I thought I'm like, this is like a thought that has run through my head so many times. It's like, this is how I die. You're like waiting for the bus and you don't know if it's your bus and you're like, oh my gosh, what do I do? I'm going to get stranded. It's like, this is how it all ends. It always spirals right there in my mind. But you figure it out and you do catch the wrong bus and you do get stranded. Like I've had to squat in a parking garage once overnight. You just deal with it. And then that's like the best thing gift travel can give you is the realization that like you can handle. Like if you literally, if you don't like end up in the hospital, and even then, I mean, been to the hospital in several countries, you'll be all right. You just have to get through to the morning.
It teaches like real life skills, right?
So many life skills. It's amazing.
Dealing with people or communicate with someone in a different language or trying to imitate what you're trying to say. Like it really is like I think the best education. But it's a recurring theme for a lot of Americans I interview is they do quite a few road trips, maybe not as extensive as yours. 44 states is a heck of a number because USA is just built for driving. That's what we've done this summer.
Yeah.
And Canada as well to extent. But USA is a rest stop every 50, 60 miles, right? You can just take it easy. It really is built for driving. So if anyone's listening right now, I would highly recommend, and I'm sure you would as well, Kayla, that a road trip in any states in USA is definitely worth doing.
Yeah, it's the way to travel. Don't go to Nevada. Worst stay in the country. Least attractive state. I would not say road trip anywhere. Like you don't even see roadkill in Nevada. And I feel like, you know what? I've been from side to side to side of the US. I say this
Mm-hmm.
with confidence. You don't just drive anywhere. Skip Nevada. Even Pennsylvania is kind of boring.
Nebraska?
Nebraska has more than Nevada.
Wow.
That's my metric.
Okay.
No, but you it's just such a good experience and like the diner culture and
Yeah.
and all like the weird attractions. It's like world's largest rose bush, 20 miles. And I have
Yes.
seen the world's largest rose bush because you know why? There was a big sign on the side of the highway that told
Yeah.
me that if I drove for 20 miles, you just like get into this funny rhythm of like, is this miniature ceramic village third biggest in the world. Is this
Yeah,
worth visiting? And
yeah.
like your partner's like, no, let's skip this one because we're gonna see the next biggest one. Okay, it's the weirdest things on the billboards, and I'd have never seen it anywhere else.
Yeah, so you're right about that. Yeah, we stopped randomly at I think the geographic center of the USA. But then you go on Google and you think, oh, there's three of them. Oh, what does that mean? There's like different definitions, right? Of like North America or USA or
Mm.
mainland USA. There's like
Oh
three different ones.
yeah.
So we stopped at one, got the photos and flags, and I guess that's true. But you do find
Good
those
enough.
like randomly on the street, don't you? Yeah.
Yeah, and the world's biggest, like world's what was the one? World's Christmas tree capital.
Oh,
Uh, I have pictures of those.
where's
Yeah,
that?
Pennsylvania, Indiana, Pennsylvania. That's where actually I went to university. But you see the sign and you think, wow, it must be this big thing. It's literally like a field of Christmas trees. They just made that up. I'm pretty
Yeah, yeah,
sure.
yeah.
I mean,
Pretty sure.
there's no one who goes around like vetting the different Christmas tree farms. It's so quintessentially American.
Yeah.
And it's so, I don't know, to me it's really nostalgic. I kind of miss the gimmicky things like that
Yeah, it's unique
sometimes.
and nostalgic. You're right. I think
It's like,
definitely for
here's
sure.
another Gothic cathedral. I'm like, that's really nice, but where's the like miniature pony capital of Europe?
Like we stayed at Christmas Valley. Do you know what that is? In Oregon.
No.
And we're
Oh,
like, oh,
I love
Christmas Valley
Oregon.
might be nice. No, middle of the desert. There's a wildfire like blown across smoke. No Christmas
Oh no.
trees and windy. Okay, yeah, we'll go next morning. 300 people maybe in that village. Imagine this, and I want people to imagine it. You are driving for hours through
Yes.
the state, so we come from east to
Mm,
west, and you just go through nothingness, and then suddenly it's like a little settlement there, and that's where we stayed,
mm.
and we couldn't believe how far away from anything, but like how desolate and yeah, especially in Oregon. Oregon's great, but it's got a desert side to the east, right? Bit shocked by that.
Yeah. Same with Washington and California. The West Coast is
Yeah,
really
yeah,
beautiful, but it's really intense. Like Washington State has all four. It has rainforest, it has desert, it has
yeah,
mountains. I forget. There's like four climates that all exist there in the
yeah,
state and nowhere else in the U.S. And I used to live in Washington. And yeah, that last drive is the worst. It's like you think, welcome to Washington. I'm so close. And then it's like, boom, desert. And there's
yeah,
like
yeah,
tumbleweeds hitting your car. And then all of a sudden it's like avalanche warning. And you think, where am I? It's like up and down. And, there's not always avalanche, but there are. Like in winter, every day there's an
yeah,
avalanche and they
yeah, yeah.
close the mountains and you're just
Coast
like
Mountains,
sitting
yeah,
there in your car and you're like, I hope I survive this, and of course it's never as dramatic as all of that, but it feels very dramatic if you didn't grow up around enormous amounts of snow that can crush you.
yeah. And then equally as exciting or terrifying is go further south, and you've got the fires that can close roads.
Oh
But we approached
yeah.
a road and something's got closed off. We're like there, like within 2 minutes, like what's going on? Cars turn around, they closed it off. Fire was going on. So oh yeah, best we turn around and go somewhere else. I think that was in sort of like New York State, like upper state. So that's a bit weird. But yeah, a
Mm.
couple of roads closed off. You really get in America, you get the full array of different types of, I guess, seasons, but things to do with nature, I think.
It's extreme, it's dramatic. I guess that's
Yeah,
kind of a nice, it's kind of applies to everything, but it really applies to nature.
you're right. And just quickly before we go on to international travel, the 6 states that you've not been to.
Oh, of course, Hawaii and Alaska. Oh,
Yeah.
Mississippi, Louisiana, and North Dakota.
Does anyone go to North Dakota?
Yeah, they sell
Okay.
t-shirts that say number 50. That's the joke
Okay.
that
Yeah,
people
yeah.
just go there to check it
Yeah.
off.
Check it off. Yeah.
Um, yeah. I've been to South Dakota like 4 times.
But you would. Mount Rushmore.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I saw it as a kid and then passing through on road trips, but oh, yeah, I just can't make my way to North Dakota. I mean, someday, theoretically. No, who am I kidding? I'm
Yeah,
probably
yeah,
never.
yeah, no. Up to that point, US travel only. So in your mind, before we get into the sort of like digital nomad stuff, international travel, what are you thinking in your mind like is maybe the first like 2 or 3 countries that you might go for if you like, if you're a bit nervous about it, but what are you thinking at that point?
I feel like something in Southeast Asia. I was thinking
Yeah.
Thailand or maybe Vietnam, right? These are the countries that everyone speaks really highly of.
Yeah.
And I didn't go, I still have not made it to Asia actually.
Oh, okay.
But I wanted to start with Mexico because I thought I was afraid of traveling Mexico. And I
Yeah.
thought, if I am not willing to visit my own neighbor, and I have been to Canada. Okay, you're not Canadian though, because Canadians are like, why Mexico, not Canada? Somebody asked me recently on another podcast, and I had to defend my choice. So I will say I've been to Canada, but I had never been to Mexico. And I thought, if I'm too afraid to navigate my own neighbor, then I am not ready to like move on. So
Yeah.
I still have not made it to Asia, but I've been to spent months in Mexico and had a really, really wonderful time.
Okay. Yeah, I give the maybe not a vibe, but I've asked this question a few times. Like, yeah, I would maybe go somewhere like Ireland or UK because I know it's a long haul flight, but that's good. You can take that off. That might be the stressful thing of doing a long haul flight. But at least when you land, you've got English spoken. So maybe go dip your toes in somewhere a bit nicer to the language and a bit more closer to the culture as a way to step into international travel. But Mexico is a great shout.
Yeah.
Amazing food, amazing people.
Yeah.
So I think it does have a
Oh, yeah.
reputation in dangerous though. You're right.
Yeah, and I, especially living far north in the US, we didn't have any, as far north as I lived, to my memory, I had no influence from Mexican culture. And then
Okay.
you move to other parts of the country and you see the food and the music, and then there's just lots of like Latinos in general, not just from Mexico, but you see a lot of the influence, and none of that reached, my experience living in Pennsylvania. But I always knew that there was more to Mexico than like the little things you hear on the news. I would have, I never believed that was all of it, but I also didn't know like what there was. And I just decided that I had to start with, facing, I thought, I'm afraid of going somewhere I don't speak the language. I'm afraid of going somewhere that's, maybe has like dangers that I'm not familiar with, because it's not fair to think of other countries. If you're American, it's not fair to think of other countries as dangerous. We have so much crime.
True.
We do. I mean, some countries are truly really safe, like the Netherlands. I've lived here, or I did live here for 5 years, and yeah, people here are not used to the fear of violent crime at all in their lives. So it's quite scary for them to go anywhere because the crime level is always higher, I think. But for Americans, I think, we look past all of that in our own community and say, hey, this is still a great place for these reasons. So you should be able to look past it in other places. That was my philosophy.
Yeah, you're right about the crime thing. USA, I was actually a bit nervous going on a road trip across from Canada, which I had no concerns. Going to USA, I was like, oh, we're going to drive through some states. We have no idea what's going on. A bit of nerves came in. It was actually all right. There's nothing going on until the very last night, and I got a bit intense. So we had to like drive back across the border. I'm glad it happened, not at the start. Like this guy in the rest stop was like saying the most awful things, threatening people on the phone, and like the worst you can imagine. So I was like, okay, yeah, we probably should just go. And there's a Washington State actually, it's near Bellingham.
Shame.
Let's just go to Blaine and then get out of here. But yeah, I just think it can take over the fear. It's a big thing. But you're right about Americans going somewhere like Europe. Yeah, Europe gets a lot of attention in news. I get it. But like places like Netherlands, Scandinavia, Ireland, Spain, I'm like, there's nothing going on. It's a dream.
No. And Americans always tell each other, be careful. It's you're driving home and they say, hey, be careful. Text me when you get there. And I kind of started to be sensitive to that visiting home. And people, I would say, oh, we're going to Paris, tomorrow. And we're leaving and going to Paris on our way back. And people would say, oh, be careful. And I started to get a little bit sensitive, snappy, like, you be careful, because the odds of something bad happening are much higher here. Well, maybe not Paris. I don't know specifics. And I'm not trying to get like, because you can't get down to the real like numbers of like, well, Paris has 2.1 murders per capita and you have 2.2, and that means it always comes down to so many other factors of like where you're staying. It comes down to like class and wealth and so many things that like statistics alone could never communicate. And but it's very complicated. But I do feel sensitive to this belief that other places are dangerous, and or that other places you can understand with a little bit of information. Like the US to an outside is like, don't go there. It's really crazy. People shoot each other over like somebody doesn't hold the door open for you and they shoot you. And I think it's almost fair for people because of how much of that news comes over. Like I'm in my in-laws house right now in the Netherlands, and the news is on, and it's like, someone accidentally blew leaves on someone's yard and they got shot. And And then Americans don't even, I think, like the news about Paris, I'm like, well, what's dangerous about Paris? And they can't think of anything. It's not even specifics. It's
Yeah.
just this fear. And I get it because there's a culture of fear in the US and maybe Canada as well. I don't want to speak for Canada, but maybe that's more of like a North American. I'm not sure. But it's all a bit complicated. I feel like to understand the world, to understand your own culture, you have to leave it. You can't fully
Mm,
understand it
mm.
until you leave and look at it from the outside and feel how you feel in a different culture. And it's kind of this constant like internal dialogue of like, wow, that made me feel this way and I wonder why. And I like this better, and I had no idea that there was another way. It's one of the beautiful things about traveling.
I think the paranoia is real. But whether that's
Yeah.
USA as an example or just travel in general is a huge issue for a lot of people going abroad.
Mhm.
And when I tell people some of the countries I've been to, they're like shocked. Like, oh wow.
Oh, tell me what's your shock country? Do you have one in particular?
No, I don't think it is. But I went to Lebanon this year.
Oh,
Now,
sure.
if
Yeah.
you're gonna if you're gonna watch the news every day,
Hmm.
especially what's going on now, which is horrendous,
Mm.
Lebanon is not too far away from that, and they're probably
Yeah.
involved somewhere along the line up north there. There were some rockets that they after left, but in my time there with people, never once did I feel maybe a bit
Yeah.
edgy some places, but not dangerous, not properly dangerous. To give you an example, I was more nervous going to USA than I was Lebanon, so that tells
Yeah.
you how fear can grip you, right? Which some people might find crazy, but yeah, it's something people need to get over.
Yeah. And it's hard, things are gonna go wrong, but that's like just kind of life's pothole highway. You're driving down it no matter where you are. Like your credit card might get stolen or you might lose it no matter where you are, and you might get sick, and that's really scary.
Mm.
But and things will go wrong if you stay abroad long enough. Everything that would have happened to you at home will happen to you abroad.
Yeah, of
And that's
course, yeah.
scary. It is. It's okay to be scared. Like if you like stay, yeah, anyone who stays abroad long enough is gonna get the flu or like a urinary tract infection, like something that just happens every once in a while. Okay, every woman can relate to that. Like
Yeah,
the
of
day you
course,
get a
yeah.
UTI in another country, that's you know it's very scary, and being sick is also a very scary thing. There's a lot of stuff to be afraid of, but I hope it doesn't stop too many people, because I don't think that those are the things that ruin your trip and your
No.
experience. It's not the UTI, it's rain.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
It's the bad weather.
Yeah. If you stay somewhere long enough, you're just gonna experience everything, right? Like even here, been here 4 or 5 years, and some of the stuff here I've never seen anywhere else. But that's just because I've been here long. But before
Yeah.
you went to Mexico, what were you doing as a job, career wise?
I was a marketer. So I was doing graphic design basically for an architecture firm in Chicago. And I was kind of like living the life. I was 23. I was living alone for the first time ever. And that was like a big wealth milestone. And I had a job where I could like afford like the clothes I was supposed to wear, because I was working for a nonprofit before that for a year for the American
Okay.
Red Cross. And I I felt like I was like playing dress up as like a recently graduated student from university. I'm like buying the cheapest blazers I can, to look the part of working in an office. And I kind of felt like I had made it. I like got this job. I had a real salary. I could afford a loan. I worked downtown. Like I worked like on the
Hmm.
Chicago River. Everybody knows those like corn cob buildings, the famous
Yeah.
ones on the Chicago skyline. I was directly across the river from that. And I thought I had really made it in life, but I was still just feeling really unfulfilled. And my colleagues all had these problems. Not all of them, I shouldn't say, but some of them had these problems that I thought were like, so like, because I kind of felt like if you're like you have a good job and you're living in this great place and you've all this, you have a good salary, like I have to have the lowest salary here, right? Like I'm 23, I have
Yeah.
1 year professional work experience, so I'm assuming I'm at the very bottom of the pay grade. And
Yeah.
people are like really complaining about everything, like the coffee here is so bad, and they and we got like good benefits at that job too, like it was a good job. And I just thought, I don't know, life was supposed to be like more enjoyable, like more fun. I actually used the word fun. I called it the corporate F
Fun.
word. Fun.
Yeah, fun.
You're not supposed to say it
Yeah.
because you're all supposed to forget that word exists. And I started asking all my colleagues, I kind of became obsessed with this. Like, isn't life supposed to be more fun than like just going to work? And like, I know some of them had families, so they could,
Yeah.
different life, but everyone seemed to say that it ought to be, but it really, really isn't. And then this very scary like reassurance started coming around of, but you'll get used to it. And that was my fear. Like they were pointing at like my greatest fear is that I just like become really numb to the fact that I expected to enjoy my life more. And I know this is kind of dramatic, but I had gone through a lot of loss in my last year of university. 7 people in my life died. And
Whoa.
I entered the professional world. I graduated when I was 21. And I entered this world with this really profound sense of like, I might get hit by a bus tomorrow. I have no idea how much time I have. And anything could happen. Absolutely anything bad could happen. Like I had seen it. Like people in my life died in like a plane crash and somebody like literally dropped dead. Like 26 years old, my roommate's boyfriend had a seizure and dropped to the ground, and he was pronounced dead at the hospital whenever he arrived. Like we never got answers. We never found out what happened. And I felt like, wow, that actually could be me. Like I have a very, very rare cancer. Someone here, like it was just across the board. I thought that could happen to anyone. But then I also had to believe that like all of the statistically good things could also happen to me. Like if I could drop dead tomorrow statistically, then I could also win the lottery or have like everything I want in life. Like I could get my dream life. If I believe one, then I have to, and I saw it. Like I saw the proof to me. Like that was proof that year of my life. Then I needed to believe the other. So I chose to believe it, that I could live my dream, like really my dream, like the best case scenario. I could have that. And that's what I set out to do, to like live my dream life, like exactly as I wanted it.
I think there's a lot of things there to unpack in terms of like the way you live your life. The first thing is, someone I know, I didn't know this guy well last week. Went to work, dropped dead, seizure or brain hemorrhage, gone. Normal as anything at that morning goes, and in the day, he's like, almost can't dwell on that too much because you'll just drive yourself crazy. But on the flip side, that does make you think, is what you're doing enough? And if it's not, you've got to put some actions in place. And I don't get too deep in the weeds of our system, but the system is built for you to have things. Now, the problem with having things is I've fallen for this numerous times. I'm recording this on the Mac, right? MacBook Pro. And I was like, lean up to like, can't wait to get it. And as soon as you get anything, I think a lot of people go, oh yeah, that was good. And that's it. The anticipation's over. You've got the thing. And it's almost like, oh, what's next? And if you keep doing that enough times, where's the enjoyment in that? There's no enjoyment in that. Like, I use my laptop now just because I need to use it. It's not like a thing that really gets me going.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of people need to ask some serious questions. An apartment in Chicago, doing a job whether they like or not, is that enough? And if it's not, what are you going to do about it? And there are options, especially with passport privilege and country privilege like UK, US, where you can go and travel and you probably will earn just about enough money to go anywhere you want. So there is options for you for that. So glad you took the leap. What was the reaction of your co-workers when you've done that?
A lot of secret like whispers of envy. I remember this one guy, I shouldn't say his name. No, I mean, it doesn't matter. There's a million people, but he came up and he said, I would leave tomorrow. I would leave tonight and do what you're doing. And I was like, nice. Let's call him, I don't know, John. Like, that's
John.
nice, John. I'm sure your wife and kids would love to hear that. And he said my wife would pack her bags. And I know they're not saying that they hated their kids, but there was like the sentiment of like, I would love this. And people kind of started coming out of the woodwork. People who I didn't even know knew my name at that firm. There was 100-something people who worked in my office. People I didn't even know knew my name were coming up and saying, oh, I would do that too, except I have these student loans and I have like a cat that's really old and has diabetes and needs its shots. And I was like, that's wow. I'm like, I never thought you should do it, but I'm glad that I don't know, like I didn't say anything. This was the HR email that said, moving on to work online and travel. And then people just started like I would be getting my coffee and someone would like appear next to me and they're like, oh wow, and a couple people like, could you share with me how you found work online? And I was like, Craigslist. It's not fancy. Craigslist, for anyone who doesn't have it, is like pretty much the classified ads online. It's all anonymous. That's how I found my job, and it was a huge step down. I had a good salary. It was an incredibly privileged position at my job. I had a good salary, and I had steady work. I guess that's like the first. I knew how much money I was making every month, and then I traded that for an online job doing freelance writing. And I found on Craigslist. That didn't pay a lot, but it paid enough for me, and I had savings, and I thought, I'm gonna figure it out. Like, if I can figure out, like, I just felt like I figured out harder things, I think,
Yeah.
than working online. And I bet I could. And if I can't, then I'm back here. And then that's kind of this, like, the moment that is a bit of a light bulb for me of, well, worst case scenario is I go and I fail and I come back.
Yeah.
And then it's kind of like the mirror just like appears in front of you that like this is worst case scenario. And I know that that's like a false equivalent to say like what I'm doing now is my worst case, but worst case is that you keep doing it. And then how can you not
true.
do it then? Like, how can you how can you not leave whenever you realize that the worst case is like taking another step down the same road? And then you can't, once I hit that point of realization, I knew that that was kind of it. And I would have never said that my colleagues should all do it. I've never believed for a second that everyone should travel. I think everyone who wants to should. Say that in the book too. Like, this is not like an enlightened form of living where you like are a fool if you don't quit your job and find online work and go travel. I would never say that because I don't think it's true. And I know I'll end up like with an apartment again and an herb garden someday and a bookshelves, and I'll, it's like I'll end up back there. It's about chapters of life, seasons of life. To me, it's not about like right, wrong, smart way to live, sleepwalking way to live. I don't believe in those extremes. But for me, I at that point in life, I did feel like I was sleepwalking. And that's all I can say is that if you feel that way too, and you want to leave and you want to travel, then you should do it. Because if you want to, you should, because it's even better than it looks from the outside.
Yes, I think sleepwalking is a very good word to describe a lot of people, whether that's intentional or not. And I think the problem with the system that we have for people who are like in their early to mid-20s is that you are taught from a very young age that you should be getting these things. So before you know it, they've probably got a mortgage maybe. They might even have a kid at that point, and shit, they're stuck. Like, especially a kid. A kid's a big one. You can't just give it away. I'm sure somebody will have, but you can't really do that. But at least possessions like house and cars and stuff, they are retrievable in terms of you can get rid of them and change your life.
Yeah, a lot of people are telling me and my husband now about kids, like you should, it's great. And you can take them with you. They're portable. And I don't know, your life won't change that much. And that to me is the quintessential mark of someone who desperately wants you to believe what they believe, because they know that your life changes. It's an absolute, to me, that's the biggest, like, might as well hold up a little sign that says like, hello, I think that everyone needs to have kids, because I thought that I had to have kids.
Yeah.
Because it's such a lie to say that your life doesn't change a lot, and it doesn't. You can still travel and do things, but you couldn't travel the way my husband and I travel. Like, I couldn't travel this way with a child. It's not safe enough. Like, sometimes we get stuck and have to squat in parking garages. You can't do that with, and I power to the people, and there's a lot of people doing it with kids, but it's a different thing than doing it alone. And it's not a bad thing, it's not worse, but you can't lie to yourself and say that it doesn't, like, kids don't change things. They do. Like, I didn't talk about bringing kids traveling in my book because I don't know anything about it. And I also think it's just so like, those are two very different things, to travel as adults and then to travel with, you just have so many needs and considerations. I could have never helped someone make those decisions.
Yeah, I think if you just got possessions, there's options. You can get rid of possessions, and people need to be not scared of that, because I guarantee I don't think you'll miss them. But before we delve into the book, like 3 countries that you traveled to so far where maybe you have not changed your life that extreme, but like really given you like, oh wow, this is what I was doing it for. Like, this is great.
Spain. Last year we spent a month in Spain in Alicante, and we travel off season. At that point we were only traveling off season because we had to have a home base in the Netherlands. So we spent Christmas, New Year's there, and we got like a waterfront apartment that we saw the sunrise above the horizon every single day for a month. It was clear enough, A, and B, it was there. It was literally, I would like open my eyes in the morning and see the sun poking above the horizon. And that, for me, I thought, man, this is like, there's something about the sunrise for me. It's it makes me feel like, I don't know, small, like, wow, the sun rose over. It's like the scene, like the opening kind of thing in The Lion King, where like all the animals of the world, and I'm like, I am one of those zebras or meerkats lifting my head and seeing this sunrise over the plains. It makes me feel small and kind of like a child with that sense of like wonder. So that was seeing that every day. I've never been somewhere where you could see it every single day, see the sun come up, unobstructed views of this horizon.
Spain, what dream place.
Alicante, yeah.
Oh,
And that apartment cost less money for a month than my rent in Chicago did.
there you go. That's another thing
So
we'll come to
there it
later, but it's
is.
about the price of living. But yeah,
The Netherlands has been changed me a lot. My husband
yeah.
saw his name's Bert-Jan. I met him in Guatemala, and then I ended up moving to his country, and
Hmm.
we were married the next year. But Netherlands was very challenging for me to live here. But it was a really good experience to see. Kind of see a country where things all work really well. That was kind of new for me. And not to dig on the US, but things don't, like where there like aren't big potholes in the road. And I love the US. It's whatever. And I don't mean to, maybe I shouldn't have said that. But I feel like if you are American, you're
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
well,
of
that
course.
this thing's broken and it's never gonna be fixed.
Mm,
But in the Netherlands, it's so different. It's like a country where they just try to fix their problems. Like there are no
yeah.
stray dogs or cats. And that's just one of those things like most countries wouldn't even think to try. And maybe it's also because it's like not that important, but they
Hmm.
kind of have so much tax money. And so that was really interesting. It felt like seeing a very different approach to life. Like, let's
Mm,
just make things as nice as possible for people. There's no perfect place. That also taught me that.
yeah. I think Holland are leading the way.
Great. Everything's top five in the world. And then you get here and you realize, well, there's still problems and headaches.
Yeah.
And it's good to realize that no place, yeah, there's no like the grass is always greener thing ended for
Mm,
me here, like realizing that. And also that you can have a really nice life somewhere with statistically a lot of problems. Like, you know, it comes down to money more than anything. You can have a very incredible life, in any country if you have enough money, which is also an interesting realization. Like nothing is off limits.
all these top like 20 cities live in liberal cities. They're all expensive. Okay, yeah. So I can live in Sydney, should I? Yeah, okay. Most expensive place in the world. Yeah, cool. That's livable. Like,
Yeah,
I don't get them.
no.
If they're to visit, maybe, but livable. Like Vancouver
Mm.
is always rated livable. Yeah, it's nice. By the mountains, we get some
Yeah.
bears. That's a problem. People don't realize, but like, yeah, the cost of living's crazy. Opioid crisis is not good. But yeah, it's
Mm.
always ranked in the top 10, isn't it? So I don't know what these people see. Maybe just dip it out of the hat and change it around every few years. I'm not sure.
I feel like it's what mood you're in. Those people are in that day because we
Yeah,
could all, as
yeah,
travelers, also
yeah,
do our like top five places
yeah,
to live. And it's like if it's sunny out, we would say Norway in winter for the drama, and if
yeah,
it's like
yeah,
dark and rainy, we would all say Mexico, the Mexican, the coast, the Gulf of Mexico.
yeah. It's strange.
And you asked for a third place that I really
Yeah.
liked. Montenegro was really nice.
Oh yeah, the hidden
Eastern
gem of
Europe,
Europe.
hidden
Yeah,
gem. Yeah, it's really, really different. Yeah, it felt
yeah,
very sometimes in Europe things feel similar to me as an outsider,
definitely.
where I like can't feel that like that church is 100 years older, and I know that's important, but I have no
Yeah.
appreciation for that because it just doesn't like can't see it. I can't feel anyway. But Montenegro, yeah, I thought that was a really special, very mountainous and dramatic, and everything was
Mm,
kind of old. Like the apartments were not modern, where I'm used to like things being. I was kind of used to things being kind of like in the Netherlands, for example. Like everything's very modern here. Like the homes are very modern, even
mm.
if they look old. Like the inside is all more. I don't know. So all of a sudden, I was like you were in places where things were like clearly from the 80s and
Yeah.
still worked, but something about that was very like nostalgic. I think it felt
Sounds like
like I don't
Vancouver.
know. Yeah,
All the
there you
buildings here
go.
from the 70s. Yeah, that's why
Yeah.
there's no insulation. Yeah,
Oh no, yeah.
and no aircon. Crazy. Okay, yeah,
Oh,
Montenegro is on the list. Yeah, yeah. I think it's got a bit more reputation the last few years, but I think it's still worth going to if you want that bit of rustic European travel.
yeah, it lives up to the hype, I would say.
Okay, good recommendation. Nice.
Cats everywhere. Go to the cat museum. It's fascinating.
Okay.
It's my favorite museum of all time, I think.
Okay. So we're going to delve into your book, How to Be
Okay.
a Digital Nomad. So
Yeah.
what I've done here for the notes, I've kind of gone through each chapter. I've not chosen everything because I think people need to read the book. So I've got a few topics in each one about, I reckon people are thinking right now, okay, I've got some questions. But before I get to the book, another question. You went to Mexico, one-way
Yes.
flight. How long was the process, do you think, of getting to that point, of thinking about it, putting action in place or plan, then actually doing it?
I left at the end of August, and in October, I actually wrote it down. I have the date actually written in the book because I found my old like journal, and I found the day where I wrote like, is it such a crisis to not be in love with life? And then and then
Deep.
I thought about it for a few days, and I came back, and in like the next journal entry I wrote, maybe it isn't, but maybe it really is, like maybe it is. So that seed of that, like I kind of started like rejecting like the corporate life thing. I was kind of starting to reject that, like a bad organ transplant in October was like the first signs of rejection. And
Yeah.
then in March, I thought, I'm doing it. I'm gonna go. I was like researching heavily. I decided on this way of traveling. I'm gonna get rid of everything.
Mhm.
And then I planned for a few months, which was honestly too long. I think that because I
Oh,
almost chickened out. I almost went back on it. I was very scared.
yeah.
And I was actually so scared that I decided not to get rid of all my stuff. I got a storage unit and kept like all the big things, which was a huge mistake. It was a very expensive miscalculation.
Yeah.
So I kept a lot of my stuff in a storage unit because I was like that scared. I started kind of walking it back. And
Mm.
yeah, I would say 3 months. 3 months is enough time if you are trying to make this, unless you short of having a mortgage and you need to sell your home,
Mm.
there's nothing that can't be done in 3 months. And
Yeah.
it's enough time that you maintain momentum. I would say that's a really important thing, because I don't know if I would have stuck through. I was really quite scared, and I felt like I was making a mistake. And then you kind of start to find signs reinforcing what you are afraid of,
Yeah.
like a friend told me, well, if you don't like your job, my company's hiring, and I've seen your
Yeah.
graphic design. I know I could get you an interview in a heartbeat. And I was like, oh, maybe that's a sign, and it wasn't a sign. It was just me being really afraid. And it's not a barrier to entry if you're afraid, but do not let it talk you into being too afraid. Because if you're afraid to go traveling, then you'll be afraid of the next thing that you really want in life. Like
Yeah.
if it's a dream and you say, oh, I'm too scared to do that, what you're saying is, I'm too afraid to do what I want with my life. And
Mm.
I just think that's a very sad place to find yourself.
Yeah. Get one shot, right? Yeah. Yeah.
Whew, it's hard, and there's a lot of things that you miss. Is like, it's all about seasons of life. I think like the pendulum always swings both ways,
Yeah.
and you feel like, oh, I would really like more money, like because then
Yeah. That's another one.
whenever you
Yeah.
start traveling, you're like, forget money. Money is like not like all I want is like life's currency, like all these things, and it's true at the time. And then after a while, you're like, I think I want the devil's currency. Like, I think I do want money in the bank,
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then you hit the point where money's not worth it anymore. And it's okay, I think. Like, it's okay to feel that way, because like you'll never feel the same way forever. But I don't know, it's hard. And then you're also wrestling with a big question, which is like, what is my, I don't know, like my purpose in terms of work? Like, not like
Yes.
your life's
Big
purpose
question.
doesn't have to be the same
Mm.
as like your career purpose, but I think that your career purpose is really important to
Yeah.
like everyone. I think that that's just one of life's big questions.
It's hard because last year, before we went, I just thought that quitting my job, having a bunch of savings, and going traveling, that it's going to carry on forever. Because I'm like, yeah, something will turn up, and like, of course, I got a podcast, and yeah, like we can carry this on forever. It's completely naive because unless you're in some sort of business mindset or entrepreneurial mindset where you're thinking properly how to continue it, it will just dwindle the money. And it's a stressful situation. I just had this naive mindset that going traveling will open all the doors for like your career purpose or business purpose. And it doesn't need to be in that mode as well. So when you see these digital nomads, which I'm sure you're one of them, they don't only have the travel sense, they have the business sense combined. And that's what makes them go long term. And someone asked me, what does long term travel mean? I said, it doesn't mean traveling all year fast paced. It means having the option. So if you want to stay at home for 3 months at Christmas and do a bit of work, that's great. But then you have the chance
Yeah.
to go to Cuba afterwards because you want to. That is traveling full time because you have the option. And that's a place where you've got to.
Yeah. Yeah. It's yeah, you said a lot of good things in there. I'm laughing and thinking, oh, a door would open. You know what? I think a door is gonna open, because I believe a little bit. It's like kind of the jump and your parachute will appear. It doesn't always, but something
Yeah.
appears. Maybe it's like a pillow instead of a parachute, and it still hurts a little, but it helps.
I think if I donated like 10% of my travel fund or 20% to by making money, then yeah, I'd agree with you. Like, oh yeah, I have the door open, but having this complete mindset of just, I'm going to Middle East, I'm going to Europe, I'm going to Asia, like every month of the year. And yeah, I was doing the podcast still, just about, but like it's just not in that mind frame. Like I wasn't looking at opportunities. Some people might reach out for interviews, but it wasn't like the right place to be if you want to extend it. And I think now, like travel is not dissipated, but it's just taking a little back seat while I'm trying to work out what to do, because going forward, I know that would be a result of that. So I think it's a slightly different mindset. Maybe it's a bit of maturity, maybe. I don't know. But then I was at your point. I was just fed up. I was burnt out. I was fed up with life, like in terms of like being in one place, doing the same bills, ready to go and see a bit of the world. And there's nothing wrong with that as well, I don't think.
No.
Okay, chapters in your book. First one says, so you want to be a digital nomad. Good question here. Who is it actually designed for, this lifestyle?
Yeah, my philosophy is that digital nomadism is for normal people. It's not as extreme or alternative as it sounds. I mean, it can be if you want to like there's this one guy on TikTok who's a horse nomad and he lives like on his horse's back and he lives off the but he makes money from TikTok. So okay, he's an extreme example that is quite alternative, but it can also be really normal looking if you want. And I think that there's kind of this image of people who are digital nomads, for people specifically who have never traveled much on their own. And then they think like, I would love to travel because maybe they have this online job now and they think that that's like a cool members only club. And I know that's how I felt. I thought that is like, I am not cool enough. I don't know anything about the world. Like, I don't know the things that you need to know about the world, which is so, I don't know, maybe I'm not, I wrote this book for the planner because you don't read a book about something if you aren't trying to plan it out. And because I'm an excessive planner in that way. And yeah, I think it's for normal people who work online. If you want to go work from anywhere else, I think if you want to go work online from your sister's house, a town over, and you want to stay there, then yeah, you're dipping your toe into the water of what it means. Because it's just about mobility. It's like that's the real conversation we're having. And it's what all of us who love to travel do with that mobility is go somewhere different. And I think that it's as simple as that.
Yeah, it's been location independent, right?
Exactly. Location independence is the real currency here. And
it buys time.
It's so popular now too with the pandemic. It was quite alternative in 2017. People were well, it might not work out, and that's not true. Digital nomadism as a movement is very much here to stay, and it's also not new. It's like 40 years old.
Yes.
All the way back to the 80s. So it's also not that revolutionary. I don't think it was, and it still is for every individual who's like, wow, I think I'm going to change my whole life. That is like a revolutionary moment for you, but it's not so alternative. I think I wish people that's one of my big things. Like, it's not as weird as you think. Like, if you work from home, you're not doing like, why couldn't you work from an Airbnb somewhere else? Because it's the same process.
Exactly that, isn't it? Which kind of answers the first bit, is explain what it takes to be a digital nomad. Is that you want to go and work abroad and just stay in Airbnb for a month or whatever. Like, my only question I have with that, and it's like not really aimed at you, is just that visas. Now, traditionally, for my last 10 years, I get a work visa, I work, and then I leave because you have to go, right? But technically, don't digital nomads, can they just turn up on a tourist visa and still work on a laptop that way because you're not earning money in the country? Or is that a grey area, do you think?
It's a gray area. I think a lot of privilege goes into it. I think a lot of people who travel on certain passports will never be asked those questions.
Okay. Yeah.
It's kind of historically been don't ask, don't tell with digital nomads. There's even big companies that have been around for years, like Remote Year, that's a good example. They are a big company that do digital nomad tours. And they've been around for years and years and years. And they say, we're going to go to Morocco for a month. And they all just do tourist visas. And I did a lot of research on that for the book, and it kind of came up that those companies, as long as those companies are doing it, nothing's being enforced, especially on and then if you boil down to the individual level. But those companies are making, I don't know, millions, from, I don't know about Remote Year specifically, but digital nomad travel agencies, quote, that bring these tours and tour groups. And I don't know when it's going to change, or the nuances. Kind of a difficult thing. It's a difficult topic.
Yeah, because some countries have brought in this digital nomad visa now, which is great because you get maybe some benefits of living there. But there's a cost. There's probably a cost to it, and probably a certain amount you need to earn, right? But I kept thinking, like, Barbados has one, like.
Oh, that's the most expensive one.
Yeah. So, for example, why would I pay for that when, if I just worked on my laptop, can't I just go down the tourist visa? I know it's a bit of a privilege, but I can't get that thinking up my head. And I wonder if they're starting to think, like, how we're going to deal with this. I don't know how you prove it, but like if you're going to Bali with a laptop on a 3-month visa and you leave after 3 months, I know it's cheap there, but you still have to ask some questions like, what are you doing here? Like, how are you funding yourself? Or even maybe more expensive countries. Like if you're going to Australia on a tourist visa, but you stayed the whole length, unless they start asking for proof of funds, I don't know how they can weed it out or do it correctly. I don't know.
To my knowledge, countries don't want to stop digital nomads from coming.
True.
This is a Patreon shout out to Laura from the Swamp Soup Stickers, who has contributed £5 to the podcast on my Patreon. Thank you so much for your support. Really appreciate it, and it helps the podcast to keep going in the future. If you're interested, head to the show notes where you'll find a link to my Patreon. The website address is patreon.com/Winging It Travel Podcast. For £5 English, you will receive some trendy stickers from myself in the post, a shout out on each episode, and also my digital travel planner by email. Thank you for your support.
Even there have been news stories where they raided co-working spaces, like immigration raided co-working spaces and rounded everybody up and took them in and then just let them all go, because there's it hurts the country to turn away digital nomads.
Yeah.
I mean, there's also some negatives. I'm not saying digital nomads are like a gift to whatever. There are downsides to the community sometimes where, like, you know, local people can't rent anymore because, like, Lisbon's
Bali,
an example. Basically. There's Bali as well, over tourism. There are downsides, but economically there's a benefit to letting digital nomads in your country. And I've never, it's a little bit of a weird subject. Don't do it in the US. I would say really don't go to the US.
God, no.
Don't go saying that you're there on a tourist visa. I know that's one of like the black, like, that is not accepted, you know. But,
yeah, interesting topic. Okay. Next topic on the book was surprises of living the dream. And this is a very important one, is expectations versus reality, I guess, / highs versus lows. So let's go expectations versus reality. I guess people listen going, oh, it's amazing. You can travel all the time. You this and this. I guess the reality is sometimes not guaranteed work. You might not have enough money. You need to work long hours. Like what are some of the things you've learned that you wrote in the book?
It's not vacation. Like, you are not on vacation all the time. It's not it's not a holiday. I mean, you are living somewhere. Like, in that moment, you're just living here and you're working here. And like whatever your day was like at home today, that's probably what your day would be like abroad. Like, you wake up and maybe work for 8 hours or however many, and then you close your laptop and go out, maybe go to the grocery store, and that's what life is like. And maybe you're more active, or I mean, honestly, I think it's just as like routine oriented as normal life. And you know, there'll be exceptions to that based on your work, but it's not this it's not like it's not adrenaline packed adventure. You have to be there for the journey. Like, you have to be happy to be where you are. And I think some people go traveling to kind of run from something. I think we've all been there, where we're like running from something at home. And a lot of people find that they're unhappy as digital nomads. And I think because you're actually quite alone with your thoughts. You spend a lot of time with yourself whenever you work online. And if you work online already at home, then you know this. But a lot of people felt that with the pandemic, that they were like, their mental health really declined at home. And it's not just being alone or whatever, but that is a part of it. And you have to be okay. I think it like makes you be at peace with yourself in a way. And you're not distracted all the time. Like, you're working on your laptop. It needs to be like half images of you at the beach and half images of you at your laptop. Like, that's the accurate, you know, like J dream, but people only dream about the other side. It's like climbing mountains and, you know, hitchhiking across Georgia and the Caucasus. And it's, you have to be at peace with yourself, I think.
You're absolutely right. My vision, and this might be an interesting one with reality, I'm not sure, is I expect to be working, but I would rather work in the Cook Islands in a hammock for a bit with good Wi-Fi and then take a dip in the sea for a lunch break than staring at a grey wall in Vancouver, right?
You've got the right image.
yeah. It's not going to happen all the time, but I think I just want that choice. It's good to maybe just change it up now and then and try not to put too much pressure on it, maybe. Like, I don't know if you felt this, that going away, making the leap, that you were trying to do the travel all the time, or you felt like you should be doing it all the time. But obviously, it's not realistic because you've got to work.
Yeah. And I was trying to combine traveling, like working in the morning and then going out and like moving from A to B to C, like hostel hopping and being really busy. And I couldn't be at peace that way, personally, at least at that point in my life, because I thought about doing other things. I thought about having fun whenever I was working. Whenever I was having fun, I was thinking about working. It was this like guilt cycle that I
Yes.
wasn't in the moment of any of it. And you know what? I didn't know how to be in the moment because I had never been in the moment. I was always daydreaming about what was next. But you really have
Mm.
to, like, you can't go all the way to Cook Island in a hammock and sit there and look at the sea behind you and think, I want to be somewhere else. But that's so many people's
Yeah.
defaults. Like that was my default whenever I started traveling. So then I got on the road and I was like, I want to be in the next place and the next place and the next place. But what about this
Yeah.
place? Like, this is the place I wanted to be. And here I am not paying attention to any of it. And yeah, that was a muscle. Like that gratitude, awareness, be in the moment muscle. Like it's not just like BS, like that is real life happiness. Like make or break if you're happy.
That's so interesting. I had some of those thoughts this year, actually, on my travels. And it's not related to paid work, it's just related to the podcast. Sometimes
Hmm.
I just felt like I just need to be there somewhere for 2 weeks and just have good internet and get some interviews done or recordings done, or because I felt bad for the listeners. But yeah, but I really wanted to make sure I wasn't behind. And that was a problem because I felt an urgent need every time I thought that to go to the next place. Oh, I've got to see that place.
Yeah.
And it's too fast. Big lesson learned this year from that. That's a transition when you go long term or full time travel, that you need to have both in your mind, but don't feel guilty for doing one or the other.
Yeah, and it's really hard.
Yeah.
People have asked me like, oh, like one of my close friends went and started traveling full time this year. She said, I think I'm really bad at, like, I don't think I'm cut out for this. And I asked her why, and she described like the exact place that everyone starts at.
Mm.
And I told her, you're not bad at it, but if you quit, you'll never, you'll probably not get good at it. So maybe you should keep going for a while and see. And it's you're trying to balance opposing forces. Like that's the definition of equilibrium, the
Yeah.
balance of opposing forces, and travel and work are opposing. So
Yes,
to
very.
tether them together and try to combine them, it is, if it feels difficult, it's because it is difficult and everybody struggles with it. Like I will have times where I'm really good at it and then times where I really feel like I'm drowning and I can't enjoy any of it. And that's where it helps to travel with somebody or in a group. But being alone, you can kind of spiral into, no one brings you out into the moment. Like I
Mm.
feel like it's nice that's where it for me makes a big difference now to travel with my husband.
I think traveling as a couple or as a group, I'd imagine there's highs and lows of that, but I think it's probably a little bit better. A bit of reinforcement there. Oh, is this right? Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, it's okay. Okay, cool. Do you have some quick fire highs and lows?
Oh, I would say like a high is the first day you're like swimming in the ocean on like a Tuesday in the afternoon, and you think like, man, I could have been at my desk. Like I cheated death. Like that's kind of the feeling. You're like, I cheated this thing that was supposed to be for me, coming for me, and here I am living life. And then almost like another low is like 2 months later, whenever you're swimming in the ocean on a Tuesday afternoon, and you're thinking about your inbox because you lost appreciation for the moment. Like that for
Yeah.
me, that exact like the same situation does not give you that rush and you think like, what's happening to me that I can't appreciate this. So that's a high and a low.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, a bonus question before we get to the next subject then. What would you say is the ratio right now between work and travel if you had to give like a percentage of the year?
Oh gosh, well, right now I don't have an apartment. Got rid of all my stuff, so my husband and I are having like a slow month in the Netherlands, staying with
Yeah.
his family, and then we're back on the road in like 10 days almost to go
Okay.
through. Well, we don't even know. We spent all day looking at maps, Google Maps, all day plotting it out, and we kind of haven't decided yet still. So we're gonna hit off for Southern Europe. We have no idea which route we're going yet or which countries, but um yeah, I would say most weeks are normal weeks. Like I work 40 hours a week most weeks.
Oh, really? Oh, wow, that much?
Yeah.
Wow, wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm a writer, so I kind of go through spurts with like all the
Yeah.
assignments and then try to take some time off. But I like to be focused. Like I probably work more than most digital nomads, which is maybe about balance or something. But
It's a question that I get asked the most. What percentage of travel and work do they do? But I think
yeah,
that question is only applicable to non-digital nomads. I think, like extreme travelers, for example, who don't need to work. So I
yeah,
think for them it's a good question because like, well, how much are you at home and how much are you
yeah,
abroad? But yeah, it's an interesting discussion.
yeah, very much so.
Okay, how to make your plan. So this is a very interesting question. A lot of people will be thinking is how to make money whilst on the road.
Yeah. So there are two big doors you can kind of walk through. You can walk through employed or self-employed.
Yeah.
That's kind of the biggest discussion to have with yourself. And if
Mm.
you choose employed, you'll probably get some stability, like some securities there. Like you might get benefits. You might
Mm.
always have the same paycheck, like a salary that's always the same. You also will have some restrictions, like you will need to tell your employer where you want to work. Some people don't. They're called stealth workers and they
Oh.
lie about where they're working,
Wow.
and they have cost the highest. So I did a lot of research on this, and the highest number I could find was one company had to pay, I think they were, I don't know if they were fined or they just had to all of a sudden pay 30,000 US dollars in like fees as a company because somebody in their company lied about where they were working. I think that the company was based in California and then this person moved to Texas and didn't tell them.
Ah, that's just down the road.
Yeah, but so only one person, I believe. So what, for my understanding of it, is that
Yeah.
only one person creates a company. So if your entire company works in California and you move to Texas and then file your income taxes in the US saying that you live in Texas now, but this is your employer, now they have a Texas office legally. So they had to pay all these fees to incorporate in the state of Texas.
It's a very American / Canadian story. Because in UK, you can work anywhere in the UK and it's the same tax.
Okay,
So if you want to
yeah.
go to the Outer Hebrides in Scotland and your office is based in London, there's no difference as long as you're internet and do your work.
Oh,
So it's very.
okay.
That's why I was a bit confused. Like, I thought this guy's working like in Thailand or something.
Well, that as well, there's a lot of,
Yeah,
I mean, there are legal implications for the
yeah.
country or for the company, and people go to great lengths. I actually found some really good really juicy articles, like people who had left, they were living in Dubai for like 3 years, but they still had a fake address in Texas. And then their employer's like, oh, we mailed you a new webcam to your house. You start using it. And they flew back to receive the package. They
That's
flew
brilliant.
to Texas to receive the package from their
Love that.
friend who was, and they even took a picture of their home office and made it their green screen backdrop. And these people all spoke anonymously with like Bloomberg or something about what great lengths they were going to. And
That's awesome.
that's the less ethical route. I know that maybe it's a victimless crime sometimes, but if you feel like you can't be stopped from traveling, then self-employment, there are no restrictions. You just have to incorporate.
Best way.
Yeah, you pay your taxes at home. Like my business is filed in the Netherlands. I pay taxes here because I'm American. I also file my taxes in the US.
Yeah.
But that is only the US, and I think Eritrea have citizen-based taxation, so everyone else is okay. And if your company's based in the US, then you're paying, it's the same. But it's then you have the freedom to go wherever you want. In terms of, you don't have to get permission from anyone. You just have more flexibility. And the time zone issue, a lot of people with employers have issues where they want overlap. Like, well, I don't want you to go to Thailand if the company's in Vancouver because we'll never be online at the same time. So you can negotiate that. Like, well, we'll have 3 hours of overlap, and then always use it as a starting point. Like, we can start with 3 hours of overlap and see how it goes. And then I think most employers, from what I understand, I have not been employed in a long time, but I think most employers stop caring over time because they realize that there's actually advantages to having teammates spread out. Like, it's actually quite the assets depending on the type of work that you do.
Absolutely, you get like a full time zone workforce in theory.
It's like you can have like 24 hours of progress.
It's no difference to them having offices in different countries, right? Like Workday, for example, who I used to work with their system, Canada. Yeah, they're based in California, but they've got offices in New Zealand, Australia, UK, like everywhere, because they want to be 24 hours. It's a little different in that sense. Yeah. But for a self-employed perspective, what are some of the things that people could do as roles to make money on the road?
Most popular is probably freelance writing. It's a very popular thing. If you, let's say you are, whatever language you speak natively, somebody's being paid to write articles in that language, to edit. A big thing for native English speakers abroad is being paid to edit in a non-native English speaking country. Like people who are like, well, I need someone to edit my thesis, and I mean, you shouldn't do that unless you're actually skilled at that. But which is an issue where people are like, well, I speak English, so I, I'll take a crack at it. And then people get really poor or help. So don't do that if you're not qualified, I guess is a good, but you can freelance anything. I mean, people are literally being paid. They pay online friends to talk to them.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, you can be paid to do anything online as long as it's ethical. I think that it's fair game. Personally, it doesn't have to be like your life's calling, you know, to like I've done quite a lot of jobs online that they weren't like, I mean, it wasn't who I was, you know, like I was writing for almost like a tabloidy kind of magazine for a while, an online magazine. And that wasn't like my identity, was that I was writing for this magazine. It was just, well, this is what I have to do right now. I'm doing the best I can. And I feel like in the online world, it's okay to have a little bit more of that, where you just like something, you know, you need to have some extra money coming in. Like I stumbled into a whole business that way with doing Pinterest management, where someone was like, hey, can you do this for me? Like they messaged me on Facebook and said, can I hire you to manage my Pinterest account? And I'd never thought about it, but I really needed money and I was good at it. I was good at managing Pinterest because I did my own account really well. And I knew, and I had freelanced already, so I was familiar with making invoices and the whole thing. So I said, yeah, sure, you know, and I had to say yes and take the opportunity that presented itself. And yeah, you try a lot of things that you would have otherwise never tried. I think it can be like a nice thing.
My one question is, have you made money from blogging?
Not loads of money from blogging in terms of passive income. I do make some affiliate income, but
affiliate income.
Yeah, but I write blogs for other people. So that's a service.
Okay.
So those are kind of the two like legs of online business, are service based, where you're like, you know, providing a service. And then there's a passive, which is what everybody talks about. It's passive income, but there's a lot more to it. And then there's also like product based, but I think fewer people are doing that. There's like a lot of people who try and fail. You know, doing Amazon, you know, whatever. You meet a lot of people who have attempted that. And then content creators, I guess, are kind of like maybe the fourth leg of that stool. I don't know what metaphor that is, but
you're right. They're up there. Affiliate marketing, I'm interested because I'm like, I can put it in my show notes and that could be a blog and I can write blogs about travel. So I think there's like something there. I know how hard it's going to be because people would try and do it forever. But I think it's key to see it as not as their main income, right? As passive income. You've got to keep that in mind.
Yeah, that's like the sprinkles on top of your income. But people who say like, I've heard this advice on podcasts where people say, Joan, if you are forced to make it work, you'll make it work. So just quit your job, get rid of all your stuff, go to Chiang Mai with a 3-month visa, and you will be forced to figure out how to make money. And then it's like, and that's how I became a blogger, and I make loads of money. And I feel like that is not really.
I don't think it's realistic.
I mean, some people will be pushed positively by that adrenaline. I don't think everyone will.
I'm not going to name them. There's a well-known couple who do blogs that I have seen quite a bit on a few social media. So I thought, do you know what? I'll entertain it. So I got a newsletter, and you know, they boast about having, and I'm sure this is true, $20 to $1,000 a month on their blog, and they get people to write their blogs. And I was like, okay. And they go, oh yeah, I've got this great guide that would help you. Okay. I was like, I wonder if they're going to charge for this guide. And they do. They charge like $200. Now I know you could see it as an investment, because if you do what they say, you'll make money back. But my point is, well, if you're making 10 to 20 grand a month, why do you need to sell a guide for $200 when it's worth 14,000, whatever they say it's worth, which is bullshit. I couldn't get my head around that.
Yeah, there's a lot of less than reputable stuff. I feel like as soon as, I don't know, I can kind of like a little bit of like a like, this is fishy. I have like a, you know, spidey sense. Like, this feels a little weird. Like, a lot of people, I think that they are telling the truth too. They're like, well, I make all this money on Instagram, so buy my course to teach you how to make money on Instagram. And then they're selling the course on Instagram. Well, yeah, that's a machine that feeds itself.
Yes.
So it's not hard to see how you're making, but also a lot of people are teaching from this I place. Well, I did this, so let me teach you. And I just think it's really funny, because if you saw that anywhere else, like, imagine if you had a plumber come over and you were like, can you fix my kitchen sink? And they're like, well, I did this on my kitchen sink and it worked. Do you want me to do it to yours? You would immediately feel that bullshit. Like, it's not, I have a little bit of a thing with it.
That's why you can't compare journeys. Because every blogger's journey, if they're full-time, would be different. And this is why people struggle, because they're like, oh, but you never get the answer of how you do it, because, like, well, everyone's different. Like, I can never tell someone right now, like, the podcast journey, being on and say, this is how you do it. So I'm like, I'm sure I've done a lot of things wrong, and I'm still doing things wrong. But it's just the way I've done it. I can't. I'll
Yeah.
never dream of giving that out there as a
No.
thing to do. But I could maybe do like someone's podcast manager and provide a service where I think you could do this way, and I've done it. And if you like it, we can go this way. But I've never dreamed of saying this
Yeah.
is how you do it.
No, I felt very sensitive to that, even in the book, you know? Like I don't say that this is like I'll tell you every step to take, but I my approach was let me help you consider some of those decisions. Like I don't
Mm,
tell you you should be self-employed because I don't believe that's the answer for everyone. But I try to give a lot of information about what questions you need to ask yourself. And I don't tell you where to go, but I do like give a lot of information to consider. And I tell a lot of other people's stories. I interviewed a ton of other digital nomads because I was really afraid of giving a guide that's like, I did this and here's how you can too, because I
yeah.
don't think it's helpful and it's not enough. And yeah, I found digital nomads spanning 5 decades of travel
Oh, there you
and
go.
going all the way back to 83 and then someone in 99. I mean, these are people, I
Oh,
mean, really cool people doing cool things. And yeah, them sharing their advice for the next generation, the next, that makes them sound like grandfatherly, the next iteration of travelers, like what's their advice for someone who's doing this now. And anyway, that was my fear. I didn't want to be that way in the book either, of like, well, let me pay me to tell you all my wisdom. I feel like, let me help you, give you a big list of things to consider and help you
yeah.
decide and make a plan and a suggested timeline. And yeah, and here's what other people did. Here's stories from 10 other people who did it
Mm,
over the course of 5 decades and what they considered and what happened for them and where they are now. At the very end, I do a roundup where I say where everyone is now who was profiled in the book.
yeah.
And I think that's, I don't know, to me, that was my approach with it.
I think that's a good approach because if they just give you like advice and how they done it, that's fine. People who try and sell that, I don't.
Mm-mm.
Unless you're, I don't know, in the top five. But how do you even? Like, I don't know. Let's say Nomadic Matt, for example.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, he could probably sell something because he's done it. Like, he's the original, almost one of the originals. He's
Yeah.
done a lot of stuff, a lot of content. Like, yeah, you could probably buy from him, but I'm not saying he's better than anyone else. But I think someone at the top level, maybe. But like, a lot of these people are trying to sell guys, and I think this is a bit of it's not black and white, basically. And I tell you, someone
No.
who I do like seeing on Instagram, just a shout out, is Finding Alex. I don't even know Finding Alex on Instagram.
No.
She's a Kiwi, and she's very transparent about her life as a digital nomad, about
Mm,
especially how many pictures that she puts through and gets rejected. And this person's got like
mm,
40,000 followers, right? And
yeah.
how much she makes on affiliate marketing. She puts like screenshots. This is what I made. And people think it's going to be thousands. It's not. It's just like, she says, I think I make $60 a day or something. Just pays for her
Mm,
food and some accommodation. It's not like the dream that people are probably thinking. So yeah, she's pretty realistic about that.
that's nice. Yeah.
Okay, digital nomad destinations. Just a couple
Yeah.
maybe for people to consider. Not Bali.
I avoid giving specific destinations, but I would say
Okay.
something to consider
Yeah.
is contrast. Like look for contrast from your normal
Okay.
life. Because the nice thing about traveling is whenever I feel like it's like jumping into the water whenever you're like really hot. You like jump into like when it feels like so refreshing and you think this is like, oh, finally, I've been needing this. And that's what travel should feel like. It should be like, wow, you feel like surrounded by it and really stimulated. And you
Mm.
can't get like if you go from New York City to London, you are not getting the full level of
No.
stimulation that you could. And I think it's really important to seek contrast. So like speed of life, like say New York City versus, like a fjord town in Norway, different speeds of life, different vibes, different kind of like a different tempo, different climate, different people, different culture. If you feel like life's been like you're tired and you need a break, go to a country where you speak the language. If you
Mm.
feel like you're bored and you need a bit of adventure, go somewhere really different where you don't and go, look for something very contrasting. I think that's like the money
Good
as a
advice.
digital nomad. I think that's the money trick.
No, I like it because I'm thinking now, where do I go? And I'm very contrasting with places, but I think the first three places would be very different. I'd want a bustling city. Vancouver's a bit dead, so I'd probably go to somewhere like Tokyo or Bangkok. Maybe probably is a city I'd go. Well, I want a beach, so I'm probably going to like Cook Islands or Fiji or something,
There you go.
or Maldives. A couple of thoughts I'd have, or Greece,
Yeah.
maybe Greek island. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So I
Yeah.
think there's a lot of options available. I guess it depends on the cost, but yeah, think about what you want. It's good advice. Okay, next one is kind of what we talked about already. Is this chapter's called "Where and How Will You Work?" You've got how to balance work versus travel.
I guess that's
Yeah.
very personal to you. You can't really mess it up as well. If you're going this digital nomad journey and you're doing
Yeah.
90% travel and your lifestyle's going to finish in 2 years, you're not working enough. You need to figure that
Yeah.
out, don't you?
Yeah, yeah, I actually made a whole list of like the two problems you're gonna have is that you're underworking or you're overworking.
Yeah.
And I think most people do have both, like through different kind of
Yeah.
seasons. But especially if you're self-employed, this is a downside to being self-employed,
Yeah.
is that you kind of lived in like feast or famine cycles. So you are whenever work comes by, you think, well, I'm so lucky that this article came in or this opportunity. So you say yes to everything.
Mm.
And yeah, I've spent a lot of time coming up with the symptoms of how do you recognize that you're overworking or how do you recognize that you're underworking, and then what are like immediate things that you can do today. And I actually reference that list sometimes, like whenever I'm feeling out of balance, I reference that whole chapter section. I think like, oh, I heard myself say it the other day, like I'm so unmotivated, and I don't really believe in unmotivated. Like you aren't supposed to be motivated every moment of the day. If you were like always quote motivated, you would like never sleep or go to the bathroom, or like you would always be
Dirty
working.
word, motivation. Yeah.
Capitalist attitude that you always need to be productive.
Motivation, I don't believe it. I don't think it's a thing, personally.
No, no. Yeah, it's like what you're saying. If you're saying like I'm so unmotivated, like what you're probably feeling is, well, I needed a break. That was what I was feeling. I needed to like take the rest of the day and kind of walk away.
Yeah.
And or you might be feeling I don't like my work anymore.
Mm.
And
Yeah.
that's an
Yeah. Yeah.
important thing to hear,
Yeah.
like having that internal dialogue is really important. And, it's going to be hard at first, whenever you're a digital nomad. It's going to be hard again in the future after you figure it out, because it is a hard thing to do. And most people struggle at home, I think, with putting work away or working enough. I think that it's not a natural thing it's hard. So it's going to be hard no matter where you're at. And I think it's good to expect that whenever you're traveling.
Okay, 2 points there. Like motivation is weird. I'd never say to my girlfriend this morning, I'm really motivated to speak to Kayla this morning. That's ridiculous. Of course I want to speak to someone new and like meet them and understand the story. There's no motivation there whatsoever because it's just like what I want to do. So I like it. I'm working all day on my stuff and I don't stop till like late and I need to get out of this mode. Well, I can't sit there doing scrolling on Instagram. I've got to get stuff done. So I do get stuff done, but I can just keep going. But on the flip side with the podcast, I've now got really better at that. Did an interview in the summer because I was on a road trip. Trying to interview on a road trip in Camden, USA with no great internet and somewhere that's that quiet is hard. So I thought, no, I'm taking the summer off. But now I'm like doing it in batches. So now the next like 2 months are quite busy. So I think working on the road would be quite saying, like, I want to work in October. Okay, cool. And then maybe November is a bit quieter. If you've got that privilege to choose work, I think that's quite a cool way to do it. But everyone's different.
Yeah. You nailed it. That motivation is it's kind of fleeting, and it's not always tied to money either, which is also kind of confusing if you think that you need to be making money or you want to be making more money, but you're not motivated by money. And yeah, it's weird. It's a very personal journey.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then what's even harder, sorry, I feel like I've been on the subject for a while, but if you look at like the graph of how much work is, a normal job becomes more work over time. Because you like start out at the bottom and you work your way up and you manage a team or whatever, but self-employment is more work at the beginning. And then you have maybe employees or you outsource the things that you're not good at, or like even as a writer, I used to write for free just to get published and like get recommendations. I would offer free articles. And now I get paid more than free. Now I've been writing for years. I have a book deal, like my rates have gone up, and I write faster than I ever did before. So I'm spending less time and I'm getting paid more because of my expertise. So I feel like I'm like coasting finally. I mean, it's like, so it's hard because the freelance thing as well, like freelancers make more money. Yes. Ultimately, but not at the beginning. And it's hard to know what's right. Like the Dutch have a saying, what's wisdom? And where you ask yourself, what's wisdom? And it's very hard to know what wisdom is, because what wisdom is for right now is not always like the big picture, of like 5 years from now. But it also doesn't matter because nobody, I don't know, it matters less than we think, but it matters so much at the same time.
It does, like, you're right. I guess the dream is you charge more, you work less. Because if money is not the motivation intrinsically, then as long as you're just happy with a certain amount of money, then in theory, if that's the barrier and you charge more, you work less. So I think people need to work that out. But it's hard to know at the start because you don't know what you're supposed to charge. It's an interesting one.
It's very hard.
Yeah. Okay. Next question is very interesting. It's home. I'm going to give my
spiel first, and we'll see how you
Oh,
react to
good.
it.
Okay. Let's hear it.
I've always been the person that I don't want a home, as in like I don't
Yeah.
want to own a place.
Yeah.
And I've been doing that for 10 years. The end of this trip, which has been a year trip, I've actually got a bit fed up not having a home. I think our motivation is very much that we want to buy somewhere to have a base. And I'll tell you why, a couple of reasons. One, we're fed up with staying on people's sofas and leaving shit everywhere,
Yeah.
even though we don't have that much. And number two, I just feel like sometimes you just need to go back to your own space and be who you are just for a month or two,
Yeah.
and just have that space. And you don't have
Yeah.
to worry about where it's going to be. Airbnb costs, I know it costs less than renting, but like I just feel like that's the reason. So what's your thoughts on home?
I think everyone feels that way, where they want to get back to somewhere comfortable. And I have that. I don't have a home base right now, but I did. Well, whenever I started traveling, I gave up. I didn't have a home base anymore. And I liked that a lot. But then I ended up with a home base again in the Netherlands, because we moved here and we were going to use this as like our European home base and traveling, and did that for 5 years. And yeah, we stayed low cost. I think that's kind of the trick. If you want to travel a lot, but still have a home, like we had a studio with like an open loft kind of. So I guess it was kind of like an open 1-bedroom apartment, and a renovated school. We didn't like, we shared showers down the hall with everyone, a little bit like a dorm vibes.
University.
Yeah. But it was a funny place. But yeah, for 5 years. So whenever we went away and like rented somewhere in Spain for a month, like the cost at home was minimized. And now we don't have a home base at all. We got rid of everything. But we still come back though and stay. We stay with my family or my in-laws. And that for me is really, that fills my need for a home base whenever we come back. Good. Like I don't want to have to rent a B&B every moment of every day. Like, I think that it is important to have that place. And I totally get the need for a home base. Especially if you know where you live. Like if you know that you always want to go home to like someplace, then that's nice. Like we don't know what country we'll live in whenever we stop traveling. So for us, we couldn't really have a physical home base of our own if we wanted to. It would just be a total guess. But I think it makes sense for a lot of people. Like I think the people who get rid of everything like we have right now, I think doesn't have to be the norm. I think a lot of people enjoy traveling a lot and come home, even if they're gone for like 3 or 6 months out of the year, come back, dust everything off, enjoy.
I think it's options as well. It's options. Like we don't have the option to stay anywhere. So I think we are always trying to find somewhere to stay, and that's getting a bit tiresome. I don't know, it has to do with age as well, mid-30s, but I think we can stay somewhere short term. But like if I want to stay, like if I go home at Norwich and want to stay and just do podcast work for 2 months, I'm going to have to rent Airbnb. I've got nowhere to go. Over time, that's a lot of cost. And I think I was like, imagine just go to a place where we don't have to live in it all the time. It's just there. So I think that's where we got to at this moment, which is quite interesting because it's a huge financial commitment to buy somewhere. And I don't want a mortgage. So I'm like, oh, no, I'm not getting a mortgage. I don't want to be honed down by the bank. So it's a tough decision, I think. Not sure. Yeah.
You touched on something interesting, which is the kind of theory of returning, decreasing like return on investment. That like at first, like your first year traveling is like such ecstasy and exciting, but by let's say your 10th, you just can't get as excited because it's your norm. Like it's, what is that, I'm not saying it right, return on investments, depreciating returns. You can't it can't all be as exciting. And I think it's you're at a level of traveling that most people don't reach, actually, where you have been doing it for that long. And
but I think I can accept going home 2 months and working. I don't mind that. I think before I never wanted that, but now I'm like, oh, I don't care. Like, I can get a lot of stuff done in 2 months. And if that means like for the next month I can keep things ticking over, then great. I'm a batch person, guy. I don't know. I need to work that out as something I need to work out. But yeah, I just think, I can go home and just do work 2 months. That's fine by me. Catch up with people, and then I've already go in January when it's cold and wet and horrible. Just go to Cuba or something. I don't know. So I think that's kind of what I'm thinking. It's a long journey, that, because if you don't want a mortgage, you've got to save some serious cash. Okay, next bit, caring for your career. This is quite important. Remote work, hygiene, sort of mental health. Both very important things. I guess I think we touched on it already. You can get a bit burnt out, work too much, underwork. Like, I guess that's very important to keep on top of. Underworking, you overwork too much and you don't enjoy what you're doing. So, what's the point of being there? And then you work too little. I mean, I interviewed people who had crazy stories of like going on these digital nomad group tours, and 2 people got fired the first week. A couple other people got caught up in the FOMO and quit like outright. Or people just got blamed for things that went wrong. Like
well, the project didn't turn out as well, and you were like off having fun, it's kind of illusion that they weren't. So having your mental health be kind of, maintaining your mental health to your highest level is really important, I think, no matter what's going on. And yeah, remote work hygiene, I kind of say hygiene in air quotes. Hygiene to me is like how you conduct yourself online. Like, do you have a bunch of files sitting in your downloads that are all named like image 4 and you have no idea what it really
that's
is?
Me.
And if your computer crashed, the headache it would be, you would have things lost. Or you say, oh, you can find the attachment, your employee, your coworker or whatever is like, well, what attachment? It's like, oh, I can't find the attachment, and it's because you named the attachment like email attachment. So you're never going to find that. And these little things that really impact your life, like how you conduct yourself with your computer, like kind of physically, quotes, like in with the files and naming things, but also, are you replying to emails within 24 hours? And even if you say, I got this, thank you, I'll circle back. Like little things like that communicate to your team that you are still working, because you might, if you're employed, you might have the hurdle, this like, this thing that people think you're not really working. They're like, well, she's on vacation all the time. And that's not an image that you want to have. And you also don't want people to feel like if you screw something up, or even if you have like a very legitimate issue, like if you get sick or your computer breaks, if you're like, well, I have to like take 2 buses and a ferry, and a monkey ate my computer charger and I don't know what to do, and people are like, gosh, she's a mess. And all you have to say is like, I'm having problems, I'll be back online tomorrow. And if people trust you because you've always been reliable, that to me is like part of the hygiene. Like people know what to expect, because if you conduct yourself sloppily, it's like as bad as walking into the office with like soup stained sweatpants on. Like, it's as sloppy, and it's how people will come to think of you. I think it's important to be very, very professional is not the right word, because it's not about being professional. It's about people thinking that you have it together, like you are keeping that image up, and also just holding yourself to higher standards, because you have to. Whenever something goes wrong and someone works at home or the office, it's like, oh, they're having computer problems. But if it goes wrong whenever you're on an island in the Mediterranean, it looks like it looks like you're on vacation and you must have dropped your computer while you were on somebody's yachts. The image is very important that you maintain.
Being employed and digital nomad must be quite hard. I don't know how you keep track or keep that in check of like who's thinking what, because if you've got a bunch of people sitting in US and you're allowed to go and work in Thailand, I just don't know how they're never going to not think that. Unless you just absolutely smash it and you get all the stuff done, I don't know. But you start being late one time, and then you start turning up like with very casual wear and a Zoom call. You might start getting those little comments.
Or you're not replying to your email. It's like 3:00 and you're done replying to your email or your messages, and people are going to assume that you're out like at the beach or something. And this was not like my concern. Like, this is what I heard from all the interviews I conducted, that people do not want to hear that you're on vacation, and that's what they think. So don't bring it up. And also being really relatable, I think. Like, I made this mistake once I was late, and it's like, oh my gosh, the hurricane on the island took the Wi-Fi out, and I'm like describing my problem, and it didn't go over that well on the other side. And I think, I should have just said there's internet problems, because everybody understands internet problems, but everybody does not understand like some crazy thing that can only happen, like a monkey stole my whatever, a monkey stole my wallet once. Like, monkeys are... They're terrible. But you don't have to. It's good to be relatable. Like, your life is, don't like emphasize how exotic your lifestyle is. I think that's kind of an important part. And we're going way beyond like what I consider like the remote work hygiene. To me, it's like be organized, reply to everything, schedule emails. If someone has a birthday, like that goes so far, because you lose all this casual contact that you have with your team. There's no like coffee or meetings or and they might not even remember what you're doing. Like, how much of your work do your colleagues even know? But they see you, if you're in the office, they see you at your desk and they say, wow, Raquel's working really hard. I see her working hard, but they're never going to see you doing your work. So you have to kind of conduct yourself in this really, really pristine way.
Next thing is networking. I imagine this is key for a lot of jobs. For digital nomad and self-employed, quite important, I'd imagine.
Hey, just a quick one. I just want to say there are many ways to support this podcast. You can buy me a coffee and help support the podcast with $5. Or you can go to my merch store with the affiliate link with TeePublic, where there's plenty of merch available to buy, such as t-shirts, jumpers, hoodies, and also some children's clothing. Thirdly, which is free, you can also rate and review this podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Podchaser, or Good Pods. Also, you can find me on social media on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and TikTok. Simply just search for Winging It Travel Podcast, and you'll find me displaying all my social media content for traveling, podcast, and other stuff. Thank you.
Yeah, and you're actually at an advantage as a digital nomad because you're used to the digital space. You're used to remote relationships, and almost nobody networks in person anymore. Like going to networking events where you hand out your business card. I mean, it's quite passe. It's like almost as old school as like a Rolodex with the big, like, I don't even know if people know what those are anymore. It's not the norm to exclusively meet people online or to, maintain, like, who doesn't maintain their relationships through text and phone call or Zoom calls. So you are, kind of advantaged there, I think. And you find people on it. LinkedIn is it's the best place for professional networking.
Yeah, I've started to really get into that properly. I've been on it for years, but doing posts and stuff like that. I think I've realized it's key to maybe a lot of things about even getting guests for the podcast, but also getting work. I think it's going to be an important thing to go down as a business route.
Yeah, people are really friendly and willing to help and active, and there's a lot to be had with LinkedIn. It's very easy to grow and meet people. It's a lovely place, actually. If anyone wants to connect, I think you'll probably put the links in the show notes, but please send me a connection request and tell me you came from the show. I would love to connect. And I've done a lot of work. That's how I got my book deals, through LinkedIn. Publishers found me. Yeah, they found me. I was sharing some stuff about the digital nomad lifestyle, and they reached out and they said, "Hey, have you ever thought about writing a book?"
Oh, wow.
And that was how it all happened. Great. I mean, it was that simple. It was just a DM on LinkedIn. And he also came to my website before, like the editor went to my website and he saw, she's a writer. We like what she's writing. So it wasn't like a standalone thing, but it was the catalyst and like the meet cutes, which is, I think you'd be that for a lot of opportunities. Yeah.
I think it's more legit. The amount of spam I get on something like Instagram, like, I'll grow your stuff. I'm like, mate, you got 20 followers. Like, I don't think you can do it. But I think LinkedIn is a bit more. There's referrals on there. It's a bit more legit, proper photos, proper like engagement. So I think that's definitely the way to go.
People spend a lot of time building community there. It's not about building followers. It's about actually meeting people. People are very invested.
Do you have the premium account? Bit of a nerdy question.
I've done the trial. It's really nice, actually.
Is it nice? I haven't delved into the trial yet. Yeah.
It's nice. Well, I write for HubSpot, so I need to get a lot of sources for articles. So then you can message people. That's very nice. But I mean, it's fun. Definitely sign up for the free trial. I think it's worth it whenever you're growing, and it makes you look a little bit like more invested, I guess. It doesn't mean anything like to me personally, but it shows that you're actually active, because there's a lot of like kind of empty accounts that people just like add you, and they're not really active. They actually don't want to talk, but
I'll try. Okay.
Yeah.
Also, another thing about networking is kind of the same line of thinking, is that for me, like podcast events, I want to go to some. But when you're working in a normal job with certain vacation time, they generally are somewhere else. It's quite difficult to go to some. You have to pick and choose.
Yeah. The freedom's so nice whenever you're self-employed. Yeah. It's amazing. I was a birth partner for my best friend whenever she gave birth to twins. I've never done that if I wasn't self-employed. Like, can you imagine that email? Like, paid time off request for somewhere between Kelly's 36th and 40th week of pregnancy. She actually did get induced, so it did get planned but it was like, we'll induce you tomorrow, at the ultrasound. So the number of opportunities you get to say yes to with the flexibility of being self-employed and location independent is just like a jackpot situation of freedom.
Okay, getting to the sort of last few subjects, really. This is an important one, a bit further down the line, is you've done a chapter on managing your finances abroad. You've mentioned being American, you have to do your taxes, of course, wherever you are in the world. A key thing here is preparing to make the leap. I guess a lot of people are thinking, like, how much should I have saved? I guess there's no real right answer to that, but like safety net basically was what were you thinking before you went?
I didn't have hard numbers for it. I was kind of afraid of numbers at that point in my life. I just thought, as long as I have a huge credit card, limit, if anything really bad happens.
Yeah, absolutely.
And You know what? So something really bad happening is it's using your credit card, and whenever you've no plan to pay it off, like that's the really bad thing. Like I thought that was the safety net, and here it was the thing to be afraid of. But I think that whenever you're looking at how much money to save, you actually have to kind of consider what you would do if something went wrong.
Yeah.
Like I kind of call this like the go home nomad, or the like shelter in place nomad. Like if you lost your job today, you know, or let's say you start traveling and 6 months from now you lose your income, and you don't have to know the answer to this, but ask yourself, do you see yourself going home right away? Like, because if you think, well, I would just go back to my parents' house, like to me that was where I was, you know, if something ever went so wrong, I'll just go back to my parents and crash there. And then you need a lot less in savings, because all you really need is like immediate expenses and then a flight home.
Yeah.
And you could probably be home in like 48 hours, and then your expenses are if your expenses are going to stop, if you have somewhere free to stay for you know, an undefined amount of time period. But if you think I'm going to stay put and figure it out, you need a lot more savings. I would say at least 3 months, but almost even as important as that is like having the skills to reduce your income. Like if you were living out of Airbnbs and then all of a sudden you lost your income, like if that was me and my husband, we would at this point in our lives, we would probably start immediately house sitting. Like forget Airbnb, we're going to do trusted house sitters, no accommodation costs. We already have the skills. We used to live off of like $8 a day for food budget for 2 people, like making tortillas from scratch, I can't say my husband making everything from scratch. Having those skills and knowing like if I had to, I could live off of very little money. Like you could make your money go so far if you had to. Those are skills that are really worth kind of, you know, at least acknowledging. Like not a lot of people have like really pushed themselves long term on like a grocery budget. You know, maybe everyone's been broke, but saying like I could probably live off of like $2, you know, $1 a meal or $2 a meal. And maybe it's not realistic everywhere with costs, but just having those skills, man, it's a life skill to be able to thrive on a very low weekly budget is a skill that hopefully you don't have to use all the time, but I think it's important to know that about yourself.
There's a good skill to learn, which is very privileged for us to be possible. So I remember my friend in Australia, in Perth, I managed to get a job somehow working in the mines, in the kitchens. I don't know how I got that. Just got it. I knew it'd be good money, so I went and done it. And his job finished a little bit early. And he didn't have too much savings, but he knew that staying in Australia is going to clear him out unless he finds a job, sort of Southwest Australia, not much going on. So he flew to Indonesia for 2 months. And that was cheaper staying there than like booking 2 weeks accommodation in Australia. So my point is you need to assess all the options. If you're really short on cash, this is not good advice for Americans, but if you're British and you're really short on cash, you want to go somewhere cheap, go to Cuba. There, some guy has got Airbnb in Havana in the center, two bedrooms for like £10-15 a night. You can do cheaper, but compared to like Canada or in UK, for example, you're paying 3, 4, 5 times that amount. So there's like different countries around the world that's privileged, don't forget, but like
very privileged, but it's a good to understand.
Like Thailand, for example, Bangkok, you can rent an apartment there with no rules. You don't need to be a resident. You don't even need an income. You just need to pay the deposit and pay your rent. There's actually like very limited rules. So like, you know, you need to go to Thailand, just live off like street food for a month, go and do it, kind of stuff like that. But that is privilege based on passport and, you know, visas and stuff. But there you go.
Yeah, they're good tricks to have in your pocket.
And I've got investments here as well. I mean, I mentioned finding addicts earlier on Instagram. She does mention that it's so up and down her income that sometimes she has to go into some of her investments to live. I don't know how extreme that can get, but I guess you kind of need to maybe think slightly long term.
I would say if you really want to stay abroad long term and you feel like you have nothing to go back to, you feel like I don't have an apartment, I'm not going to go back and stay with my family, maybe you don't have that option. Be really prepared. And I would say start with the extreme money saving options at the beginning of your trip. Like start house sitting at the beginning or do work away. That's what I did, because I thought, well, I don't know how much money it's going to cost. I have no idea. So I started my travels doing work away and I stayed for free. And I also got food some food at that job. So I had very little outgoing weekly cash, and I was working. So you're building up your money and you have very little going out. And I think that's the best way to start if you feel like you need a savings buffer, because it's hard to save at home whenever you like rent and maybe you still have a car or something. But whenever you are already going to somewhere that's hopefully cheaper, I'd say go cheaper and start with aggressive budgeting tactics at the beginning.
Yeah, you're right. Get ahead of the game.
Yeah, build your buffer up, and then you can relax and go somewhere more expensive and pay for an Airbnb.
Go to Fiji and
there we go.
Yeah, that's the way. Okay, you got when things going wrong as a chapter. I guess this is a very important topic. Can't all be good. You got like maybe lack of work, crime, health, that sort of stuff. They're just kind of the main subjects, right? Just to navigate through.
I think health is the biggest one that people are not going to be used to dealing with when just doing vacationing. But just some like tips in there on just health is hard because it's always different, and everything no matter what happens, if you're in another country and you go to the doctor, it will not be what you wanted. It will not be what you expect. Okay, I shouldn't say it won't be what you wanted, because it sometimes is nicer than you expect, but it's never what you expect ever. Even things that you didn't know could be different are different.
God, this is an interesting subject, because from a UK perspective, the worst case scenario for me, if I'm really that ill, I'm just going to fly home and go to hospital.
Yeah.
But from a US perspective, though, I don't know what you think about this. You need insurance, right? And I don't know how it works, but US always gets taken the piss out of because they don't have a universal healthcare system for a lot of people. You need to pay for stuff and then get insurance, and some people can't afford insurance and stuff like that. So I don't know how it works for you guys.
Yeah, doesn't really cover it anyway.
Yeah.
I usually handle things abroad. I mean, I haven't had any like true serious. I mean, I just got really, really bad food poisoning in Mexico. I was sick for like 6 weeks.
Oh, wow.
So that was severe, but I shouldn't say I haven't had to deal with surgery or anything. But it's funny. I actually met an American couple living in Mexico, and they said that they had surgery there, and how we asked them like, oh, what was that experience? And they said, we drove up, they got the directions, they put it in GPS, they show up, and they called the surgeon, and they were like, I think we're in the wrong place. We're next to a gas station. And he's like, yeah, that's it. It's to the left of the gas station. That's the surgical center. And there's like no sign. But then you go in, and they said it was like pristine. It's like this, but the outside, they said, we like made a joke, you like make a joke like, wow, this does not look like this is goodbye. And then he went in, and it was a pristine surgical center on the inside. And then the surgeon drove him home. He's like, oh, let me give you a ride. You shouldn't drive. And and he had the best medical experience of his life. And this guy, I mean, he and his wife, I think they were in their late 50s.
Wow.
And saying how it was just the best experience. And I also had to I had to take myself to the hospital in Mexico alone in 2017. And I had the same thing. I was so scared. I got in there. It was like the nicest hospital I'd seen in my life. That's
reassuring for a lot of people. Yeah.
Yeah. You don't know. Funny things too, like in the Netherlands, once I went for some test in the hospital, and they like in the US, and I thought everywhere, they like give you a hospital gown if they make you like change, and they don't. They were like, what are you waiting for? Like, and I'm like, they just have you like walk naked between testing rooms.
Interesting. Okay.
Never in a million years I've thought that happened anywhere. So you have to be very open to just getting what you need. Like, you need to just focus on like the end point, which is getting help, and not what the process is like. And that's hard, and it's emotional whenever you're sick, and it's very scary. And then you want, I don't know, like you want medicine that you can't get, or they give you too much medicine and you're like, I don't know, I think this is like, it's just it could go any way, like every direction it could go, it will go at some point.
Is this also linked to having travel insurance as well?
Yeah, actually it's a good point, because travel insurance kicks in retroactively, so you always pay up front, at least in my experience. You always pay up front for everything, and then you get reimbursed, hopefully by insurance. You save everything. But not always. And it's a risk. It's one of those risks of traveling. And if you can just go home for something, you can. But if you have like, food poisoning, or I think all the common travel things are just kind of like normal. Like, I would say like something that falls into the flu category of like an ear infection, something respiratory. And, we all get those sometimes. You're not going to go home for an eye infection, but that doesn't mean that you know what to do where you are to handle it. Yeah.
That's part of the learning experience, I think, especially long-term travel.
I
Yeah.
think you just got to like just trust the process. I think a little bit on that.
Yeah, and hopefully people come out to help you. Like one woman who I interviewed in the book, she had a tuk-tuk driver take her to the emergency room
Fair.
and then they wouldn't admit her without a local contact. And he was waiting for her
Yeah.
because he was just waiting. He thought maybe she needed a ride back. And then here he came in and became her contact and like signed for her and was like with her in the hospital. And that's like such a wholesome story. And I do think that like the scary things are going to happen, but the really good things are, also going to happen. It's part of the journey.
Okay. And the last sort of chapter is digital nomadism. Is it a lifestyle or a phase? Yeah. What is it?
I think that question is both, I tackled it both like from a personal experience for me, and then what does it mean for you? If should you do this for, are you planning to do this forever? And then also just the movement. And the answer for the movement, it is not a phase. Like digital nomadism is very much here to stay. It might be new to some people, but it is not new.
Yeah.
And on an individual level, you're always going to go through seasons of life, and very few people are going to be nomadic long term. Like that's why I don't believe in like talking badly about quote normal life, because normal life is where we're all headed again. Like you aren't going to travel until you're 80 and then drop dead in an Airbnb. it's just probably not going to happen for almost anyone, even the most extreme travelers that I've met. Like yourself, you go through phases where you're like working more and you're at home more and you want that and you crave that because it's normal, because you always end up craving contrast. And for me, it's not full-time travel is going to be a phase. I don't know how long. And I've been abroad for 6 years now. So that a part of my life is not a phase. But I won't always have just 2 backpacks. I'll get an apartment again someday. And I think you need to be, open to seeing the change in yourself. Like, I don't think it's failure to set out as a digital nomad and after 6 months say, that was a lot of fun, but I think I need an apartment. I don't think that's anything. Like, I would say keep working online then and be open to all the gifts that's going to give you. You're going to be able to go home for your mom's birthday and show up whenever someone's sick. You're going to be able to give yourself what you need. Like, oh, I'm really down in winter, let me go to Spain for a month. You're going to be able to give that to yourself, and you're going to get, I think, more out of life. To me, working online, that is like the gift of the gift of this generation to me. Like, I was born in the right generation. I can't imagine I just can't imagine having to give that up. But the rest is just life.
Yeah. That is the goal.
I wouldn't wish like my phase of life where I like lost so many people. I wouldn't wish that on anybody. But I think mostly of all the 7 people in my life who died, I think my Aunt Jane, who could tell you how many days it was until she retired. You would ask her like, "Oh, how are you?" And she would say, "I have 412 days until I retire." And she walked out of work one day and was hit by a car in the parking lot.
I think the question is, let's not get too morbid here. I think you mentioned it earlier. If that happened to me tomorrow, I'm not trying to jinx things here. But 10 years of working travel, I've done all right. Yeah. I think I'd be fairly happy with that. But if I had 10 years of just doing a job I hated, I wouldn't be so satisfied. So people really need to ask some serious questions.
Yeah. I think sometimes, I know I used to kind of wish for like a car accident that you miraculously walk away from. I used to think like,
to get compensation.
But then you feel like, wow, I got the second chance at life. Like I knew someone who did that. They were in this horrible car accident and it was like a miracle. She walked away without a scratch. And I actually felt myself feel jealous that she had that excuse to throw, wow, you have the second chance at life. You could like do whatever you want now. And I had to really be honest, like, why am I do I need that? Do I really need that to happen? I shouldn't need that, especially after seeing all the people in my life die as so many people in such a short period of time. Like Aunt Jane just walking out of work one day. I think that was, if you think about the big picture of life, it kind of, hopefully going after what you want, whether if it is travel, if you're still listening, I think it must be traveling. If anyone's listened to this whole conversation, I would never say it's travel for everybody, but I think for everyone who's still with us, then it's traveling. It must be.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. Please tell us the book. When is it out? And where can people buy it?
Yeah, you can buy it online, like most places. It's listed kind of everywhere online right now, and it will hopefully be on the shelves in big book retailers. But that'll be a surprise for me. I don't know where my publisher has no info on that yet. But it comes out most of the world January 3rd, but in North America it comes out January 30th.
Oh,
And
interesting.
yeah, it has a lot of good stories from digital nomads from the ages, and yeah, I would be hope if people are interested in your reader, your planner, then I think it'll help. And yeah, I'd love to connect with anyone online too. You can send me an email if anyone wants to chat. Kayla at writingfromnowhere.com. You can email me, say hi, ask any questions. I reply to those emails where people have if you want to chat about anything.
Cool. I'll put it in the show notes so people can just click it and get you
Yeah.
an email. Can people pre-order?
Yeah, you can order it now. It's at its cheapest price ever, I guess. Don't the hardcover is like $70. I don't know why, but it's $15.99. It's a normally priced book. And there's a Kindle version coming out soon.
Okay,
And
that's
you're one of the
great.
few people who've read it, so
Yeah,
hopefully more people do.
it's a book of valuable information, a
Oh,
guide. Yeah,
zinger.
and something I'm gonna cherish. I think. Just keep referring to. Yeah.
That's my dream.
Yeah.
I'm excited to see where it takes you.
Yeah, I'm a dreamer. Got loads of ideas, and you got to quote David Goggins: "Don't let dreams become your master." So you got to put actions into place and make them a reality. Okay, we're gonna finish the episode with some like social medias and stuff. But you mentioned earlier that you do Pinterest management. So the reason I want to just ask quickly about this is because Pinterest is something I don't do, and I do sometimes think as a traveler, also as a podcaster, maybe like, is that something I'm missing out on, and it's something I should be doing? So can you tell listeners what is Pinterest and what is the advantage of maybe getting into it?
Pinterest feels like a social media platform, but it is a search engine. So people go in and they type in, things to do in Amsterdam, and then it comes up with results. And as a creator, you want your results showing up in searches so that they click through and watch your video, podcast episode, read your blog. So there's a lot of value for people who create content in Pinterest. And the secret is knowing how to optimize it, which is what I did. And in Pinterest, there's so many people to reach. Like you don't have to go viral every day. You just publish content, and Pinterest is always like hustling it out there to its readers because it's not algorithm based in terms of time, where like Instagram, it's like always recent. Like you don't see posts from 7 years ago on Instagram. You would never, but you see that on Pinterest all the time because it's like been indexed in the search results. So my account reaches right now about 2 million people a month.
Wow.
It used to reach like 5 or 6. That's whenever I started. I was helping people in these Facebook groups that are like, Pinterest is dead. And I was like, why don't you send me a link to back your account? Now look at it. And it was like, well, you forgot to like put your website on there. So, like people were just missing these really obvious things. So I was just answering questions. And then somebody said, I didn't know to what end. I just knew that it was lockdown. I like didn't have work all of a sudden. And because I was working mostly trying to build my business. I was in your position where I was like, I don't know, not to reflect, but I felt like I desperately need to make money online. I'm trying so hard and it's not going anywhere. And then lockdown happened. I had actually been nannying in the Netherlands, like part-time, 2 or 3 days a week. So I'm nannying for kids who don't speak English, and I don't speak Dutch at the time. So they're like, and they also didn't even speak Dutch. All of them, they like spoke Polish, and I also don't speak Polish. So there's like, I was like dreaming. I'm like, I need to get my business going. I need to start a business. And meanwhile, I'm like carrying a 2-year-old home from the swing set, and he's like screaming the F word at me, and I'm like, someday I'm gonna have a business of my own. I'll never have to change diapers again. Then lockdown happened, and I was actually relieved to have a break from that side of it. But I needed income. So then I was helping people on Facebook, like, well, why don't you do this? Try that. How about this? And then somebody just messaged me and said, can I just pay you to do my account for me? And then that was a 4-year business. I did that for 4 years, managing people's accounts. I did that full time. It supported both me and my husband. He also quit his job and started helping me. There was a lot of business there, which is why I always tell people, your best idea for a business, someone might point it out to you. Like, listen, like, see what you're good at, see what's easy for you. Pinterest was easy for me, and someone else had to look and ask me, like, is this and even with writing, I was writing kind of for me, for fun, for my own website, and I wasn't doing it for money. And somebody reached out and said, can you write for our website? And I was like, okay, I guess I could get back into it a little bit. I was kind of turned off of freelance writing after I was like writing product descriptions for headlights of cars.
Yeah.
I mean, I was in a desperate place before, and then I kind of swore off freelance writing because I didn't think it was for me anymore. And I thought, I'm not going to do anything until I know what I want. So I'm just going to nanny and figure it out. And then it took 2 years of nannying and coming home every day and working on my website looking terrible also. It didn't look good. Like it was ugly. It was like an ugly few years of really desperately trying and seeing no results. And I always try to say that because people think that if they're good at something, it'll be quick. Like, if it's meant to be, it'll be one of those 6-month success stories. And yeah, I hustled for 2 years just to start hitting bare minimum income limits online. And then it was another, 2 years before I was like comfortable. And my husband quit his job to join. And then it was another year until, like the book, like a publisher offered me the book deal. It wasn't like, oh, and then all of a sudden everything turned up Kayla and everything was going great. It took a long time. It was very slow, and
that's good to hear.
That's normal. I think that's the norm more than everything else. Like, I don't know anyone who had this quick success story, except you see them all over TikTok. So
yeah,
you think they must be the norm. And also those quick stories, what you know, they did that for their corporate job. Like they were like a videographer, and now they made their TikTok huge in a month. But yeah, they had that entire skill set.
Yeah, I think that's key. Just don't compare your journey to their journey because it's going to be different. But I do have podcasts I'm about for 3 years. So when people ask like, oh, how do you get guests? A lot of them reach out to me now. Like, I've been working on it every day now, so I've put the effort in on that. It's quite a tough and tiring job for free.
Yeah, you put in a lot of work. Also, I want to say you put in more work than most podcast hosts because I've been on a lot of podcasts lately for the book, and you put in much. I would say you're top 2% of the amount of work that hosts put in, like with your questions.
Oh wow, a lot of guests have said my research is pretty good. That's because it's a fear of not knowing what to say next, but also why wouldn't you want to know who your guest is a little bit? It's got to run smoothly, right? I'm constantly thinking, I'm engaged in the question, but also the next ones. That's like my process. There you go. Okay, where can people find you for social media, email, LinkedIn, all that sort of stuff?
Have difficult to spell last name, so click the link in the show notes.
But
you can find me everywhere. I'm Kayla Ihrig, spelled with an I. You'll see it in the show notes written out. But yeah, and if anyone wants to chat directly, my email, James, you can drop my email in there too, and anyone can email me anytime to say hi or to ask questions, follow-up questions. I love chatting with people.
What about website?
Oh yeah, runningsfromnowhere.com.
Yeah, you can go on there and check out Kayla's story. I think there's a contact button on there, that sort of stuff. The blog as well is on there.
Yeah, there's a lot of writing on there.
Pinterest.
Yeah.
I'm going to finish with quick fire travel questions. First off,
it's travel question time.
How many countries have you traveled to?
30.
Okay, and of those 30, which 3 would you say are your favorites?
Guatemala, Portugal, Montenegro.
Okay, and which 3 countries are next on your hit list?
Poland, Romania, Bulgaria.
Okay, if you were to settle for somewhere for a year in a country you've not lived in before, where are you going to settle?
Vietnam.
Lovely. Okay. What 3 international cuisines are your favorites that you've experienced on your travels?
Vietnamese, never in Vietnam, but everywhere else. Is it halal food like falafel and hummus? Vegetarian. That's like it's like a religious experience eating good hummus. Mexican food. Yeah.
Of course. Yeah. What about a favorite beach?
Oh, Progreso, Mexico.
Okay. And what about a favorite walk, hike, or trek?
My husband and I did a small part of the Appalachian Trail in the US. Very small part.
I did interview someone who completed it.
Yeah, good for them. Oh my gosh.
No.
Yeah.
Won't be doing that. What about if you could sit somewhere and drink coffee and watch the world go by? Where are you going to sit?
I think Tokyo.
Good choice. Okay.
Yeah.
Do you have a favorite travel view? So what I mean by that is Is it a beach? Is it a mountain? Is it wildlife? Is it a city? But you can only choose
Mm,
one for the rest of your life. What are you going to choose?
water. Facing the east to watch the sunrise.
Okay, very interesting. Do you have a favorite continent that you travel to?
Um, yeah, just coming back to Europe, man, it's so convenient. So, it's so nice being back. Yeah, I guess I would say Europe.
Okay. And what about the friendliest people that you've met on your digital nomad travel journeys, if you like, country's favorite people?
I think that there's no one more friendly than like in Portugal, everyone is incredibly friendly.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Okay.
or Mexico. I I don't know. Okay.
They're
Yeah.
good choices. What about three favorite states, not including Pennsylvania?
Oh, Oregon, Washington, and Montana.
Okay. Is there a country that you traveled to that you didn't like? Or more specifically, a place that to be a whole country?
I wanted to love Colombia because everybody talks so much about Colombia.
Yeah.
It's like the best place in the world. And I guess it was overhyped for me. And I went there and I was expecting it to like knock me over. And it was
Hmm.
a nice place, but I didn't feel the magic. Like everyone talked about this magic in Colombia. And I thought it was nice, but no nice, not nicer than like Peru or Panama or its neighbors. So yeah, I guess Colombia was, I mean, I would go back, but I expectations did not meet reality there for me.
Interesting. Okay. The biggest lesson that you've learned from making the leap.
It all comes down to you, I think. Like if you're happy, it's not about your situation or your surroundings. I mean, sometimes it is, but at the end of the day, like you can control a lot of like your outlook on life is going to be the same if you're in a bad mood in your cubicle and you think my life sucks. Going to the being dropped in the Caribbean will make you happy for a little bit, but not for long if you actually are like deeply unhappy. You can't fix that with a nice view. But you can fix it today with what you have. You can work on it.
Yeah, that's like travel in a nutshell almost. Like a lot of people
Yeah.
say, don't think travel's going to sort you out. If you're unhappy about it could be
Mm-hmm.
anything, right? I think you need to go and get help and get that sorted out in sort of
Yeah.
real life. Don't expect travel to sort that out. You'll learn a lot from travel, but I think if you're
Yeah.
deeply unhappy or you have trauma, whatever it is, I think you need to get that sorted and don't rely on travel.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. And the last question is talk about travel. If someone just is a bit nervous right now or has never traveled abroad or internationally, what words of advice and wisdom would you give for them to go and make the leap and get out there?
I would say do what you have to do to make the jump if you think like only hardcore travel counts, but I'm so scared. Take any expectation you have about like what quote like real or like challenging enough. I don't know, take kind of any prestige or fake like ego out of it. And if you're really that scared about going somewhere off the beaten path, go to London, go somewhere easy, go somewhere in the US if you're not, or Canada, go somewhere easy that feels easy to you, and then go to the next place from there. But I don't even like to say it's as good as it looks because I honestly feel like it's better than it looks online. Like if
Yeah.
you make your dreams come true, like no like Instagram picture can depict that satisfaction and how like deeply that changes you to feel yourself make your own dream come true. It's better than you imagine. So whatever you have to do to get over your fear, do it. And then
Yeah.
come join us and come say hi if you ever there might be a picture in the show notes. Come say hi. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Actually, one final question. Where are you going next?
We're moving south from the Netherlands and we're looking at do we want to go over to Krakow and go south through Bulgaria, Romania,
Yeah.
Bulgaria that way, or do we want to just go straight through south through Germany and then go to Croatia and spend the winter there? And so we're gonna let the Airbnb decide. We're gonna find the nicest Airbnb that we can for the price. We found one today. It was normally $6,000 roughly a month, and it was on sale for 1,500 a month. Off season monthly discount
Off
on
season
Airbnb.
travel. It's the way.
Yeah. And it's 25 or it's only 20% of the original cost, but we followed up and here it was booked for the dates we were looking. So
Uh,
we're gonna let the Airbnb decide. And then we're gonna find our way there, travel overland and see which way we go. Yeah, we leave in 10 days. We don't have anything booked, so we'll figure it
love
all
it.
out.
Last minute. That's the
Yeah.
best way to travel. Awesome, Kayla. Thanks for coming on to the podcast. It's been a great chat. I will
It's been so
be
fun.
keeping in contact, asking you some questions.
You've been a bit of an inspiration because you're someone who's doing it. So yeah, it's been a real fulfilled chat. Got a bit of travel in there, a bit of lifestyle in there, and yeah, I really enjoyed it. Thanks so much.
Yeah, thank you, James. It was so nice.
Thank you. Thank you for listening to my Winging It Travel podcast episode today. You can find me on Instagram at James Hammond Travel or Winging It Travel Podcast. You can search for both. I release weekly clips of this podcast episode, as well as photos from the last 8 to 10 years of my travels. You can also follow me on TikTok, Facebook and Pinterest by searching Winging It Travel Podcast. I do release daily content to do with travel and the podcast throughout the week. Also check out my website, jameshammond.org. There's content about myself, my travels, and there's also a newsletter sign up as well as a contact form. Finally, please rate and review the podcast on Podchaser. This is my platform of choice. Alternatively, you can rate this on Apple or wherever you get your podcasts from. This really helps the podcast gain a bit of traction for the future in terms of guests and content. And I'm glad to see that you guys are listening out there, reviewing it and enjoying the content so far. Stay safe, stay humble, keep listening, keep travelling, and I'll catch you soon. Cheers, James.